Boys and girls of all ages, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. I'm proudly present you the tag team champions of the world. Mike, did you see that? Norin Radd 89. And yes, they are the new age outlaws. If you're not down with that, I got 2 words for you. And that's where I'll finish that. Hopefully you know what those 2 words are. I don't want to say them out loud. But here we've got Jason the Old Millennial. Welcome to my live stream. I got my guest here, Mike, as I said. And we got Norin Radd down below me. And we're going to do a ranking of our top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time. And I attempted to do a Road Dogg DX intro there. Hopefully that came off a little bit.
Oh, yeah, man. The King, Road Dogg, man. He can actually sing really good, too. He's got some good pipes.
Really?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, he started off as like Jeff Jarrett's roadie.
Yeah.
And Jeff Jarrett used to come out and he would sing like a country song, I think. And like he was a country singer or something. I don't know if he was all that good. He was okay, I guess. But yeah.
He stuck with that guitar gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, I knew Road Dogg when he was New Age Outlaws. That's what I love it. I loved his intros; were so great. Anyways, yeah. So we do our top 10 favorite wrestlers. Maybe not necessarily the 10 best wrestlers, but just our favorites. Maybe growing up on wrestling. And before we get to our top 10, just want to talk a little bit, maybe how we got into watching wrestling or when we first got into it. Because for me, like I can remember like being aware of wrestling when I was a kid in the early 90s, maybe. And like I was aware of like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, Macho Man, Randy Savage, Jake the Snake Roberts. Like I kind of knew these people's names, and maybe I'd catch a clip here or there. I wasn't really watching it at the time, but I just kind of remember like seeing clips and just being like, I don't know. I was just so interested in it. I was just like, something about that really intrigued me. I know these really jacked guys with these cool gimmicks and the theatrics of it all. And yeah, and I was kind of hooked on it kind of from a young age, though I wasn't really like watching it so much because I think my parents didn't really want me to watch wrestling. And so it wasn't until 1997. I can remember I was like 13 years old. I was like junior high. And I came across Raw is War on USA Channel. I don't know about what you guys have that in England, but USA Channel was the Raw, and TNT had WCW Nitro and Monday Night Nitro. And I remember coming across WWF at the time and just on TV, I guess. And I must have been by myself because I was like too embarrassed to tell anybody I was a wrestling fan. Because I felt like if I told somebody, they kind of look at you like you're an idiot. Like, and they always go, wrestling, it's fake. And it's like, well, yes and no. Like, I don't like to say that, it's fake. It's like, it is scripted. There's, storylines. It is telling a story, which is why I like wrestling so much, is I love the storytelling aspect of what they do inside the ring and outside the ring. But it's very athletic men and women doing very athletic and very hard things in a ring that are very difficult. It just like any other athlete in a professional sport, basketball, football, whatever. Not everybody can do wrestling. It takes a very special, talented person to be that, strong and athletic and stamina, and also to have charisma, work the crowd, do promos. I mean, it's a very difficult, I think. I don't know. So I always think like it's not real in the sense that, like football or basketball, but it's not fake to me anyways. It's, I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know. So I always was embarrassed to tell anybody I was like a wrestling fan because I thought they look at me like I'm an idiot. And so I kind of kept it like in the closet, like I was a closeted like fan. And boy, but I remember watching Raw and watching Nitro, and there was the Monday Night Wars. And man, that was so fun to go in between both WWF and WCW. because I was a fan of both shows. I used to watch both of them, kind of just going back and forth. And I was a fan of both wrestlers on both sides. Eventually, WWE or WWF came to WWE, and they kind of overtook WCW.
Yeah,
and I kind of see why now, looking back. They definitely were the superior product. But yeah, that's kind of where I kind of really came obsessed with wrestling, was around the Attitude Era in the WWF. And yeah, just once I started watching that, and I realized that they were on Monday nights, like, man, every Monday night I was watching wrestling. Eventually I had to come out of the closet and tell my parents, like, you guys don't know this about me, but I actually like wrestling. And they kind of like, what? They're kind of shocked. I'm like, yeah, like, I really enjoy it. And they're like, you know, it's fake. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's fun. And like, anyway, so, and I think they were kind of against it because morally, there's some morally objectionable things.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
They definitely showcase women as sexual objects, and I think my parents didn't like me watching that. I mean, I enjoyed it as a kid. Like, I was like, those women are good looking, but I know my parents were kind of against it, but they didn't ban it from me, so I was able to watch it. Anyways, so I was pretty obsessed all through high school, and I'm not as obsessed today. I still kind of keep track of what's going on, but not quite. And anyway, so, but that's kind of where my background kind of goes with wrestling. So I'd like to hear about your guys' background, and also if you guys had any kind of similar situation where you was it okay to be a wrestling fan? I don't know if you guys had similar experiences, but how about you, Mike? What was your experience?
Yeah. So kind of similar to yours, Jason, being honest. So I kind of hit wrestling in kind of like the Attitude Era with my older brother Joe. So you guys know Joe, but if anyone who's like Jason subscribers and doesn't know, I've got an older brother called Joe. And yeah, you know, like growing up, we used to do a lot like football, like watch wrestling and that kind of stuff. And I always remember, I've always got these very distinct memories where I was maybe like 8, 9 years old, and I would go around to my aunt's house, who maybe lived about 10 minutes maximum from where I lived. And every kind of maybe Friday night, me and Joe would go around my aunt's house and we would stay up and watch Raw is War. And it'd be like around the time when The Undertaker was in like the Ministry of Darkness era. And for a guy who didn't watch like horror movies, you know, until in life, I was like, I was creeped out by the guy. The guy was giving me nightmares sometimes going to sleep, you know? And yeah, so kind of grew kind of like watching like towards the Attitude Era and stuff. I definitely think that's right, the best era of wrestling, that and the Ruthless Aggression era for me. And then kind of like yourself, Jason, like nowadays, I still follow on a weekly basis. I read the results every week, so I know like what's going on in the current state and stuff. I just don't think the product's as good as it is now what it was then. And especially, I mean, don't get me wrong, like if you're a kid now and you see like today's wrestling, you'd be like, wow, the Attitude Era, that looked like terrible era, you know? But I think because those guys kind of grew up at that age, we think, right, that era was awesome. You know? That's what got us into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still follow it like weekly now. I still watch the results. I watch like the highlights on YouTube because I do top 10 of Raw, top 10 of Smack. So I watch that kind of stuff. Yeah, don't really follow it as much now, being honest though, because I feel like the stories aren't as good nowadays, or because the product's watered down more nowadays. Some of it's good still, but I feel like it's missing that edginess a lot of the time, where I think it really needs to be different. Because you're right, like growing up in school, you know, the people be like, oh, it's fake, you know, it's like, it's that kind of stigma. And you could say it to certain people, but like some people would be like, you'd get teased if you said it, you'd be like, what, I want to watch men in tights and stuff like that. And what you were saying about like my parents didn't have a problem with me watching wrestling or anything, or the bra and panties matches and stuff like that. My dad would laugh his head off, being like at the bra and panties match, being like, "Have you listened to the bloody Jody King Lawler commenting on bra and panties matches and stuff?" You know, and he's like, "Puppies" and stuff like that.
I don't know if you can get away with that today or not, but
no, definitely not.
Yeah, they banned. They actually have like a certain list of words that are banned now that you can't say on television anymore.
Right, right.
That's so much. I agree.
But it's just funny, like, looking back nowadays and like save the show highlights or you watch highlights on YouTube and just, those kind of matches back then. And like Jerry Lawler used to say, and Jerry Lawler and GR's commentary was like, there's chemistry together.
I love their commentary.
Whereas I feel like now the commentary's not as good,
Yeah.
It's like they had that magic back then, But yes, that's kind of my story about how I got into wrestling.
Yeah, I like what you said there. I forgot what I was going to say, but you made said something that kind of my interest. Now I can't think of what it was.
Well, one thing I actually want to quickly add, I've actually just remembered here. So I was telling you guys about like my dad used to watch it with us, and I used to watch it with Joe. So a lot of the times growing up as well, we used to also have like wrestling matches. So always had TV. Don't try this at home.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But we'd always try it at home, and it'd always be the case of one of us would always get hurt of a move, and then it'd be like telling the other, be like, "Don't tell my voice. She'll tell us to stop wrestling. We can't do it for the rest of the time." So it'd be like times where I'd like hit my head on the radiator or stuck my leg on the radiator.
No.
And sometimes Joe would be like, "Shut up, man! Don't say anything."
Oh yeah, we definitely broke stuff around the house.
Right, exactly. But my dad used to join in and play wrestling with us and stuff, So yeah, very fun memories.
Okay, that's good. I didn't have any brothers, so I didn't have anybody. I just had friends. I guess that came over and we would we would pretend to be wrestlers, and slam each other around,
Right.
Anyways, but I can't think of what I was going to say, so I'll just go to Norin. What was your experience, Norin?
Okay, so for me, it was my grandpa was the first one who introduced me, and he was a fan since like the Gorgeous George days, Cowboy Bob Orton, like all that stuff. Like that was old days. Like, so when it was the NWA, so it was the National Wrestling Association, and then they had like I think I forgot who was the Van. I forgot who it was, but they had their own organization in Texas. So like a lot of the indie days, my grandpa grew me up on those. But when I started really getting into it is when they started releasing video games and stuff like that. So we could own it at the house on the Nintendo 64, the Sega Genesis, playing Royal Rumble, Warzone, games like that and stuff. So, and then I had a group of friends that our entire my friend circle, we were all wrestling fans. So we would all go to school the next day and like talk about it and like, who won and did you watch it that night? Like, that's how we were. It was like a little clique. So it was me and my 4 friends. We all played the games, some had a PlayStation, others had a Nintendo. So we'd go over to each other's houses and that's where we experienced the different games and stuff like that. So the new generation era was when I really got into it, going into the Attitude Era, because that was like Shawn Michaels was still the champion, Undertaker was kind of getting introduced, and then Stone Cold and all them started coming into the picture, and The Rock and stuff. So then it got really juicy because, like you said, Monday Night Wars was happening. WCW had some really great wrestlers and awesome moments in it, but like the writers were just crazy over there. So you could kind of tell when you watched it, and like especially now, I'm like, damn, like the stuff that I used to laugh at and watch, it's kind of crazy.
Right.
So mainly I have to thank, my grandpa, rest in peace. He was the one that mainly got me into it and really like showed me the old era, and that made me appreciate the new era just as much and stuff. And I still watch it today. I watch All Elite Wrestling. I watch WWE. I don't watch NXT though, which I think it's on Tuesdays. I don't watch that one.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's kind of cool. That's really old school. That's before I really
Oh yeah, he was big into it, and like that was kind of cool because like my mom, that was like our hangout time, me and my grandpa, that was our hangout time. Like, my aunt and mom would leave us alone and we would just sit in front of the TV for hours, and talk about all the wrestlers and watch them and stuff. So that was cool. Fond memories.
I know you're talking about the Von Erichs that were in Texas.
Yes, the Von Erichs, because they had their own organization in Texas and they were big out there. Their dad owned it and they were really big.
Yeah, so because you're from New Mexico.
Yep.
So you're kind of close somewhat to Texas?
Oh yeah, we're right next to Texas and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're like their whole organization, and what Dusty Rhodes joined up with them too. So Cody Rhodes' dad was doing all that stuff, and Gold Dustin Rhodes, his dad was all doing stuff out there too. So all those old school guys I knew back in the day.
Okay. Of course, I came from Kansas. I don't know. We don't have any wrestling organizations necessarily, but how about in England? Do you guys have any kind of English wrestling organization, or was all American?
I think they have like wrestling. I think they've got like wrestling schools and stuff here, and I've seen a couple of like live, like like smaller wrestling companies here, but nothing like WWE or like AEW, WCW, stuff like that. Nothing like that. No.
Yeah, because I've read like Chris Jericho. He had an autobiography. I read that he wrestled in England for a little while, so I know they have definitely a pretty good history there in England.
Yeah.
With some good English wrestlers. What's his name?
William Regal's.
Regal.
Yeah, William Regal.
He's the one I think of a lot of. British Bulldog, right. All that. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's a great trip. Just talking to you guys, like I just get and I could just talk to you guys about those days playing and all those storylines. Or some crazy, some really good ones. But yeah, we're going to our top 10 favorite wrestlers, which was an incredibly difficult list to put together. I know me and Mike and Norin were talking about it. There are so many great wrestlers through history. I mean, because you're talking about Gorgeous George. I don't know if that was 60s, 50s. I don't know, wrestling.
That was, the late 50s going into the 60s. Yep.
Because I think of like wrestling really took off in the 80s with WrestleManias coming in and Vince McMahon taking over, and it kind of really boomed during the 80s era. I always feel like wrestling really got better during the 80s on. So I'm not as familiar with before the 80s type wrestling, but it's been around for a while. But I was going to say, my problem with what you're saying, Mike, like one of my problems with today's wrestling, and maybe it was, I don't know why, they put certain wrestlers in the championship and they held on to that championship forever. And
that's true.
I suppose they did that back in the day too, so I shouldn't complain. But I don't know why. I like it when the wrestlers, go back and forth with the championship sometimes. Not too much, I suppose, but I don't like when one wrestler holds on to the title too long. And that's my problem with some of the rest. I don't know if that's just me, but like when Brock Lesnar holds on to it for like a year, I'm just like, okay, I'm done with Brock Lesnar. Or when what's his name? The guy that holds it now. He's
Roman Reigns.
Reigns.
Yeah, Roman. He's had it for like 700 days.
I don't know, and I'm kind of got tired. I liked him at first, but I kind of got tired of him. I'm like, okay, I need somebody else to take the reins. But anyways, I got a couple of chats here. Yeah, Briar CD Showcase. You guys, hey, I know nothing.
Hi, Brian.
Okay. Well, we can probably tune you in on some wrestling history with our list. Yeah, Adam from At the Gym. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Adam.
And good, Adam. Just people saying hi to each other. So we start with our number 10. Each go to our number 10s first, and then go around. I thought we'd go first, Mike. You do your number 10, and then Norin, and then I'll finish with 10, and then we'll go to 9 and so forth. Okay. So Mike, start us off. What's your 10?
So my number 10 is, so when I was younger, I used to also play with like the wrestling like action figures as well.
Oh yeah.
And I love this figure so much. I had it in a red attire. I had it in a grey attire, or like a grey light blue attire. Ultimo Dragon is number 10.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Nice.
He was cool looking.
I think very underutilized in WWE at the time. He was not getting the opportunities as like Rey Mysterio was getting, and I think Ultimo was the better wrestler ultimately. But yeah, I think it was just a shame that he didn't get more of a chance to kind of showcase what he was able to do in the WWF or WE at the time. he joined. But yeah, it was always just my favorite. I like the attire of like the mask and like the fact that it goes down to like the middle of the neck and not just face mask. Well, that was cool. Yeah, so Mo Dragon's number 10.
Okay, cool. I remember he was in WCW when I first started watching really wrestling.
Yeah, he was in a couple of the games too, in the WCW games. He was in like a couple of them.
Yeah, he was wrestling in the cruiserweight division when I first kind of got really into wrestling. Right. And he was even the champion maybe for a short period when I was watching. But then he kind of disappeared. So I don't know if I missed his heyday, his prime. Like you said, I don't know. He was with the WWE as well.
It was for a little bit. Yeah, it wasn't there like I think maybe a couple of years maximum. And then I think he went over just to Japan, I think, if I'm not
He
mistaken.
was more popular, I think, in Japan, overseas. They really gravitated towards him over there. So I think he became the IWGP champion in Japan.
Yeah, he had the cool Dragon Sleeper, which was like a cool submission. That I always enjoyed playing. I think because I had the video game I played, I had a Nintendo 64, and I played it was like WCW versus NWO, I think it was called, and I was obsessed with that game. And I think Ultimate Dragon was on there. Yeah, that was a fun character. But yeah, I can see that. All right, how about you, Norin? What's your number 10?
All right. So I have some of my stats over here too. So
cool.
My number 10 is going to be from ECW, and that's mainly really important for me because like I'm a huge champion of hardcore wrestling, and ECW is big back east, which is where my family's from in New York. So this wrestler's from Yonkers, New York, and it's Tommy Dreamer.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys remember him. Do you guys remember him?
When you said ECW.
Yeah, Tommy Dreamer. When I think of ECW, he's the face of ECW to me. He just embodied everything. He was like the people's champion over there. I've even seen interviews where he did interviews with people where he said he wanted to go his whole career and never hold a title because he just wanted to be a genuine wrestler. And like, so being that way, and he had so many awesome like rivalries with Sabu, the Sandman, like, and Taz, all this great ECW stuff. And I know it's kind of very more raw, rugged. It wasn't as highly produced as WWE or WCW, but I always think of Tommy Dreamer, and he's the one on this list that when I used to make the games, I would be like, oh, I think I'm going to look like him when I'm older. Yeah. So I would make my character look like him with the taped up hands, just the jumpsuit pants and like a black t-shirt, and then just like a little goatee and like your hair. And that was all I would like style my guy like when I would create a character. Yeah. That's how I would make him, always walking out with like a kendo stick or like a 2x4 or something. So I just always think of him because hardcore wrestling is very passionate, close to my heart, and I love ECW. And so Tommy Dreamer is my number 10.
Okay, sweet. Cool. I like that. Dreamer is interesting because he wasn't like super flashy, I would say.
Oh no.
In the way he looked, and the way like he wasn't a gimmicky kind of wrestler like a lot of wrestlers. He had kind of a simple look, but yeah, he was just one of those guys that it was really one of the faces of ECW, and he came over to WWE and wrestled some. I don't know if he did a whole lot. Probably won the Hardcore Championship or something, and I think maybe he won.
He's been a hardcore champion. I have this. He's been hardcore champion 14 times.
Oh, 14.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I think he maybe was an ECW champion when they had that, the WWE or something.
Yeah, that was the only time. Yeah, they made him champion because they didn't really have anyone else on that ECW roster, and he like said to be a transitional champ. I think he held the title for like a couple months when they had that big silver ECW title.
Yeah, and the ECW was kind of not quite as good as it was when it was in the WWE. It was almost not quite ECW. I don't know.
It was like watered down. It was like it's just watered down. You didn't want it.
Yeah, compared to what it was before when Paul Heyman was running it and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, Dreamer. What was it? Him and Taz was that the guy that they had some really good matches with? I'm trying to think.
Oh yeah, him and Taz, they beefed all the time. Taz always won, and like Taz, but every time they would have such good like 4 and 5 star matches that that was their main ticket for a long time over there in ECW.
That's what I was thinking. I remember them having some pretty brutal matches over there. Yeah, ECW is cool. I forgot about. Yeah, I used to watch that. They weren't as on TV as much as WWE, so I couldn't watch them all that much. But when I'd catch them on TV every once in a while, that was a lot of fun covering them. But yeah, that's a good. I guess I should say yeah, because to me it was like WWF and WCW, but then I forget you have ECW, and then like TNA came around. I didn't get into TNA all that much, and then AEW, I don't watch as much because I can't find it on TV really, or no, I can't find it on Hulu or anything. So I'd watch, but I watch like YouTube videos, and I really like what they're doing over in AEW right now.
It's much more closer to the Attitude Era. Like it's not full blown Attitude Era, but it's much closer to what we used to watch.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, and they put out a pretty good product as far as the in-ring wrestling and everything. Of course, they got a lot of WWF guys going over there and doing a lot. Also, you had like Ring of Honor. I never really got into Ring of Honor, but there's a couple smaller like wrestling pro like that, I guess. But yeah, that's cool. I like that. Tommy Dreamer. That's a good pick.
Thank you.
My number 10 is the hardcore legend, Mankind. And I say Mankind because it's hard because it's Mick Foley, but Mick Foley had 3 different personalities in his run, or 3 different characters, which that's what I love about Mick Foley. Like I've never seen another wrestler like have that many characters, and they all kind of took off on their own. He had Mankind, he had Cactus Jack, and he had Dude Love. I'll say I was never really a big fan of Dude Love. That was kind of a goofy character. Cactus Jack was great, and Mankind was my favorite though. Out of the 3, I absolutely loved Mankind when he did and I especially loved Mankind when he kind of did more of a comedy. He was more of a comedic character, but was really good still. And he wore like this buttoned-up shirt with a tie, and he would go down his pants and grab the sock, Mr. Socko, and it had a face on it. He would give them the mandible claw, and I absolutely loved that era of Mankind. I mean, it wasn't as serious as his earlier like Mankind's were more like the character is supposed to be like this disturbed character that lives in a boiler room was kind of the whole idea, and he wore this mask to cover his face kind of. It was a great look. I loved the look of him and everything. And he's an interesting wrestler because he's not really your typical looking wrestler. He's overweight. So he's not like The Rock or Triple H or something where they're very chiseled. So he doesn't look like a guy that could be a main eventer. But I kind of loved him because he was almost kind of like an underdog a little bit. During the time when I kind of started watching him really in the, like I said, late 90s era, around that era, like you never thought Mankind would be like a WWE champion. And then he had this great rival with The Rock. And Rock was the corporate champion, and he was the bad guy, and Mankind was the babyface. And they had some really great, brutal matches back and forth. And I remember watching Mankind when he won the WWE Championship on Monday Night Raw against The Rock. And I mean, I was so happy when he won because it was just one of those things where you're like, I love going for the underdogs. Like, I think like this guy's not your typical kind of wrestler, but he's so entertaining in the ring. And he's got such a great personality. He's so good on the mic. He's so funny. And I love wrestlers. Like I should say, like my favorite wrestlers, when I think of wrestling, I think of like, you got the in-ring ability. They really good matches in the ring. They also have the, on the mic ability, what I call it, or what they call it, where they're really good at shooting promos and stuff like that. And Mankind, or Mick Foley, I should say, he came up with some of the funniest promos, especially with him and The Rock when they were the Rock and Sock connection. Like I absolutely loved that time period because they worked off each other so well. Yeah. And he did become like a 3-time WWE champion. So I was so glad he kind of got to that main champion status, whatever we call it, one of the main guys. And he was a guy, though, that, like I said, he wasn't a typical type of wrestler. Like, I don't know if his in-ring ability was the best, but he like I'm sure you'd appreciate this, Norin, if you like hardcore. To me, he was like the hardcore guy, and he would take these crazy bumps. Like I always think of him and Undertaker on top of the cage, and Undertaker throwing him off the cage. And I remember when that happened, and he threw him off the cage, and he like fell on the announcer's table. And then the guy gets back up, climbs back up the cage. I was like, this guy's a maniac. This guy should be dead. And he climbs back up the cage. Undertaker choke slams him through the cage. I mean, I don't know how that guy survived, but that kind of made him that made him the hardcore legend to me. And I guess I enjoyed that. He put his body on the line so much, and he's so entertaining. But yeah, that's why Mankind to me had to be number 10 on my list.
Yeah, good pick.
Great choice. Great choice.
Yeah, Sophie, Retro Reviews.
Hey, Sophie.
Hi, guys. Bit of a name change as I'm coming back to YouTube. Good, Sophie. Yeah,
nice.
I haven't talked to you in a little while, but yeah, I'd like to hear more about your opinions and everything, Sophie. Yeah, I know you've been trying to get back on YouTube. I hope you do. Yeah, Sound Lab Studios, Garrett. Hi, Garrett. These are more of my... Well, yeah, he's more of my music. He does music more. So I don't know if you guys don't know him as much as I do. Says, I've never been into pro wrestling, but it looks interesting. Okay. Hopefully our passion kind of comes through and you kind of get some interest in what we're saying. Got Glenn Calloway. Hey. Glenn?
Well.
Glenn's from Canada. His daughter works for NXT, I think.
Oh, cool.
In Florida, if I'm right. So he goes down to Florida and he watches like NXT or something when he goes to visit his daughter. So I know he knows a bit about wrestling because of that. Here's Mike's brother we talked about before.
Hey, Joe.
Joe.
Hey,
Joe. Yeah, interested in hearing you, Joe. I hear you and Mike got into some wrestling matches. It sounds like.
Yeah, plenty of them. Got someone got someone out like on like old digital cameras and stuff. Like we used to go in the back garden and wrestle them. Still got some of those matches. So one day I'm gonna have to maybe find one and upload on YouTube or something.
Remember that was big backyard wrestling and.
Yeah.
People are really getting hurt in those backyard wrestling.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I never did that. I never went outside and like did moves on each other. I always did them inside, where on like couches and beds and stuff, where I had a soft landing. But yeah, those people are crazy. I don't know. Was Joe much bigger than you growing up, Mike, or did you guys?
I mean, Joe's taller than me. So I mean, he's always had the height advantage. And he's always been able to kind of.
He's older.
Yeah. And he's always been able to lift more than me.
Do you guys have a fair match between each other, or could he bully you?
It depends. Like sometimes it'd be a case of like I wouldn't be able to get like I would try lift him or something and it wouldn't happen. Sometimes it'd be like, oh look, like he's gonna put me over in that match. So he'd be like, oh, I'll take a clothesline, I'll take a power slam, whatever it is. So it all just depends really. But we didn't do a lot of. So we did some of it in the house in like kind of like our kind of like hallway. But we weren't really allowed to use the sofas and beds and stuff because my mum was like, "You're not using the furniture to use wrestling moves and bring." So that's a lot of times. And I would go out in the back garden, put a sheet down, but the sheet did nothing against the grass.
No.
So to be fair, the time we took a bad bump on our back, mind, I will say that.
Well, part of being wrestling is you have to let the other guy get some licks in before you take him out, but
right.
Or it's not a very interesting match. So.
Well, that's the thing. Like we used to have like a title belt, like what Norin's got again, like the old style ones. And would take turns, be like, "Oh, I'm the champion right now." I was the champion from there, and we'd be like, "Right, today I'm winning the title, or you're keeping the title," kind of thing, So we never scripted out. We just say like, "Oh, you're gonna win this match, but we're just gonna fight,"
Did you have any brothers, Norin?
No, I don't have any only child over in my house. But I did when I went over to my friend's house, we would play wrestling and stuff. We used a trampoline, so it was probably a lot more dangerous than anything else you can do. And that's how I ended up putting my teeth through my lip right here, because I missed I did I was trying to do a bump and just fall back, and I ricocheted and went forward, and I hit the metal part right there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Trampoline was fun too. Sophie has a battle scar from wrestling, evidently. Because I have a scar on my lip from wrestling with my brother. Went to jump on him with face first to chest of drawers. So Sophie's got into it. See, Glenn Careway, like I said, he says, my daughter's a photographer, does NXT and some Raw and SmackDown shows as well. My son-in-law is a WWE referee, I think he's saying.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Sweet.
Yeah, so he has some inside kind of information.
Well, tell us some secrets, Glenn. We know you want to.
Joe says, I might upload the videos of the backyard wrestling video sometime. Yeah, that would fit on Joe's channel. He likes to do that kind of out the wall stuff. Anyways, sorry, went on a tangent there, but we'll go to our number 9s, Mike.
Yeah, so again, putting this list together, I didn't go for the greatest wrestlers all time. I just put entertaining wrestlers, and ones that entertain me. So number 9, I've got someone else who was also fighting in the cruiserweight division at the time. Someone at this time of the Attitude Era here, you had Brock Lesnar, you had Undertaker and Kane, all these big guys. Number 9 for me is Tajiri.
Oh yeah,
nice.
I like that.
Yeah. So again, it's just this. I think he's Japanese, maybe.
Japanese, I think.
Japanese, yeah. And you just had this little guy. He was maybe 165 pounds maximum or whatever. And just doing these moves and the ropes or spitting the green mist and stuff.
Yeah, that's the green mist.
And it was just so funny, his matches, and it was quite an athletic guy for just a small guy. And I think growing up, we probably all had kind of times where we thought, I would love to be a wrestler growing up kind of thing. And I think it's at that point you don't think, I'm going to look like Brock Lesnar when I get into wrestling.
Yeah.
Especially not when he first joined, and he was huge.
It was huge.
You'd be like, I was like, I'd probably be like the bloody Tajiri in the cruiserweight division,
I'd be cruiserweight, yeah.
But yeah, he had plenty of entertaining matches. He chased for the hardcore title a couple of times as well, the cruiserweight championship. I think the European championship, if I'm not mistaken.
And him and William Regal, I think, won the tag teams at one point.
Yeah, won the tag Regal. Yeah. So yeah, I just always loved the green mist though. That was my favorite. He'd be outnumbered or he'd be nearly down. The green mist, and all of a sudden he wins the match. So yeah, Tajiri's my number 9.
And he came out of ECW, I think, right, Norin?
Yeah, I think he started over there in ECW, and then he did stuff over in Japan as well too.
I think I first saw him in ECW, and I absolutely loved Tajiri. He was one of my favorites coming out of there.
He used to have some brutal kicks for sure. He used to have those those kicks to the head.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if he was the first to do the green mist. Did Ultimate Dragon do the green mist or somebody else? I can't remember, but he might have been one of the first ones I remember doing that green mist thing where he.
I think so, because I know what's her name does it now. Asuka, she's a female wrestler. She does it now. She comes out with different masks and stuff, and she's got the whole gimmick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. I don't know how that doesn't hurt your eyes or how they do that, but the green mist. He did this move that first time I ever saw this move, and it's one of my favorite moves. Is he does a flip, front handspring, and he hits his legs on the ropes.
Right.
It what do you call it? Launches or catapults him forward, and then he hits. And I was like, that is the coolest. And I see it now every once in a while. Other wrestlers do it, but that's the first time I ever saw that move, and I was like, that is the coolest move ever. I love the innovative moves when wrestlers do that, and a lot of that's the cruiserweights. They do some really cool moves. Like I agree. I always love the cruiserweight. Sometimes the cruiserweights are more fun than the heavyweights because the kind of moves that they do in the ring. And I was never a fan of the big wrestlers, to be honest. None of my guys are really the big guys. The Giants. The Giants were always kind of boring to me because they were just overpowered everybody. But All right, Norin, what's your number 9?
All right, so my number 9, we're gonna go stick with. He's homegrown in WWE. That's where he first started, but he was a actual professional wrestler first. He's won some gold medals in the Olympics and the NCAA. Kurt Angle. I gotta go Kurt Angle because he's just his time when he entered the WWE, he got rocketed to the top. Like he didn't really spend time like meandering as like a jobber or nothing like that. I think within a year he was WWE champ within a year.
Yeah.
And a lot of that too was because of the 9/11 and the World Trade Center stuff happened, and he ended up actually talking to Vince McMahon and said, I think it would be great if we had a homegrown, like American hero, someone to carry the title, even if it was for a short time. And, Vince McMahon agreed with him, which is rare, for him to totally agree with wrestlers who are pretty new to your organization. Yeah. And like I said, Kurt Angle got rocketed all the way to the top. The Angle Slam is one of my favorites, like just one of his moves, the ankle lock. Like he was a very diverse wrestler because he can bring in that professional stuff from NCAA and everything. But he had the whole, like Jason was saying, the mic ability. He was funny. When you wanted to hate him, you hated him. When he was funny, he was funny. Like, he was just one of those guys that, and now everybody loves him. He's, a WWE legend. He's in the Hall of Fame. He even had a stint at TNA for a while where he was wrestling at TNA and he became the champion. And he was part of the Main Event Mafia with Sting and like Kurt Angle. So they had a whole organization thing. So yes, Kurt Angle is my number 9, the homegrown American hero.
Oh man, that's a great pick. He's one of the best. I mean, as far as talent, in the ring talent, I mean, because like you said, he had that Olympic history. So he was just a natural. I remember thinking at the time that I thought he rose to the top too quickly. And I kind of didn't like him for that at first, but then after a while, I was like, no, this guy's really good. Like, he really proved himself, I think. Yeah. The 3 eyes, I think. What's his name?
He even wrestled one time. I think it was a match at Backlash or something. He wrestled Undertaker and he broke his neck and finished the match. Yeah. Like, they kept wrestling for like another 10, 12 minutes after that. And I'm like, dude, I've just laid down. I'd be like, what the? I'm fucking dead. I'm laid down. I'm dead. Like, you know what I mean? Count me out. Like, what the hell? And he kept wrestling.
Yeah, he wrestled like Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and his neck was pretty messed up, and he put on a match for the championship. Yeah. Yeah, he was a machine. I don't know how to say it. Like, all right, my number 9 is, I think, my favorite cruiserweight wrestler of all time, and that is the Giant Killer, Rey Mysterio Jr. I absolutely, when I first started watching WCW, and the cruiserweight division was so good in WCW with Rey Mysterio Jr., Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho, Ultimate Dragon, Juventud Guerrero. I mean, it was so fun watching. And man, first time watching Rey Mysterio Jr. just totally blew my mind watching him go off the ropes and go on the top rope and do the Hurricanrana. It was one of my favorite moves I ever saw, and he was so good. When he would do that move on people, I was like, what is that? That is amazing. And it's funny, when I watched him in WCW, he was so small. And he was so innovative. I loved him because how innovative he was, because he'd get on the ropes and like he did this one move where he jumped on. They had 2 rings together. What they call it? They had this pay-per-view, I think, where they had
the War Games. Yeah, the War Games. Yeah, they'd put the rings together and have the cage around it or something like that.
Yeah, War Games. And he jumped off of one rope onto another rope and I was like, that's crazy. Like that was the coolest I ever saw. Like, I never seen anybody do that. Now you see people do that a little more nowadays. But at the time, I never seen anybody do that before. And yeah, he was so fun to watch. He definitely wasn't an on mic guy. To me, he was just such a fun performer to watch in the ring because of how fast he was and all kinds of moves. And then he came to WWE after WCW went down, and he kind of got a little jacked. I was like, wow, he's kind of jacked now. He's still small, but he looked definitely a lot better. And man, what I love about him is like you never think Rey Mysterio Jr. was going to win the WWE Championship. You know, guys, he's the smallest. I believe he's the smallest champion ever. And just guys that small don't win championships very often. Vince McMahon kind of famously loves to go for the really big jacked guys. That's been always a criticism of Vince McMahon. But I was so happy when he won the Royal Rumble and then won the WrestleMania. He beat Kurt Angle and Randy Orton in a triple threat match. And that was one of the happiest, times watching WrestleMania. And I was so happy watching him win because it was just, again, he seemed like the underdog. And of course, he had Eddie Guerrero died recently. So he had that whole emotional thing going on. So it was a great emotional moment because it was like he was doing it for Eddie. And it was just, great to see. I love seeing wrestlers like that don't normally win. I love seeing them get to the top. Like you said, Mike, I can resemble Rey Mysterio better than I can resemble Brock Lesnar, Giant,
right.
the Big Show or something. Like I'm never gonna be that guy, but it's like I'd love to be the smaller guy. Yeah, and like I said, there's some of the more entertaining matches I ever see is the cruiserweights like Rey Mysterio, and he's still wrestling today. I still see him today, and I'm like, how does this guy keep going? He's been on forever. It seems like. I figure he'll retire soon, but he's still going. He's wrestling with his son Dominic now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Dominic now, and he actually had this feud now. He's left because he's out of his father's shadow now. So it's like Dominic, what is he gonna do now?
Yeah, and I don't know if he can make it on his own if he's that talented, but I did love seeing them together. The first father and son tag team champions, I believe. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, always and man, when I go to wrestling shows, live shows, I swear, right when they say Rey Mysterio Jr., he gets some of the loudest pops I've ever heard. Like, crowd goes crazy when he comes out. Anyways, but yeah, and the 619 was so great when he came up with that move. That's one of the most over moves in wrestling. When he would signal that, I mean, crowd goes crazy when he goes to the 619. But yeah, I love Rey Mysterio Jr. Had to put him here in my top 10 at number 9.
Yeah, great pick.
I got a couple more. I got Joe here. Let's see. He's got some of his favorite wrestlers, Mike. No particular order. Jeff Hardy, Adrian Neville, Pac, yeah. Stone Cold, The Rock, and Kane.
Good picks.
All great picks, and you might see some of these on my list, in fact. So I for that. Garrett's going old school.
Andre.
I can't say I'm like a big Andre the Giant fan, but he definitely was, really huge back in the 70s, 80s era.
Oh, definitely.
Figuratively, and literally was the biggest wrestler. There was a documentary I seen on him. It's pretty good on HBO at one time. But yeah, very interesting guy. Glenn Keller, Rey Mysterio is an awesome pick. Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah.
See, Joe says, I love WCW. They had hardcore matches long before WWE introduced okay. Yeah, I do kind of remember they did kind of a hardcore thing around that time. They had some ECW guys come in, and they were extremely entertaining. I always felt like WWF was just there. They definitely was more extreme. I don't know how to say. They were PG-13, I would say, and WCW was more PG. They did stuff on WWE. It was just outrageous. Like I don't know if you can do that on TV anymore.
Oh yeah, if you caught them live at the right time, you'd maybe get a nip slip. You can catch one maybe.
Yeah, they've had some of those, and WCW I think was trying to go a little more family friendly. I don't know. I definitely could watch that with my family more than WWE because, like I said, they had the bra and panty matches, which that was something. Yeah, and they had some really crazy storylines. See, there's a feud between Dom and Ray. Yeah. I think family members always have to have a feud. You can never have brothers just be brothers. They have to get into a match at some point. Glenn says, I got to shake Andre the Giant's hand. Wow.
Yeah,
his hand was huge. Yeah. It was like shaking hands with a catcher's baseball glove. That guy's hands were enormous. And he could eat and drink so much because of how big he was. I mean, it was just insane the amounts that he would, like alcohol. He would drink tons and tons of alcohol because it wouldn't affect him because he was so big. There's so many crazy stories about that. Yeah. All right. So now we're going to our number 8, Mike.
Sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, number 8 for me is another wrestler where I used to have quite a few variations of the action figures of this guy. I really enjoy him, his athletic ability. Kind of a part of Kurt Angle, like Team Angle back in the day.
Yeah.
And that is Shelton Benjamin.
Okay, Shelton Benjamin.
The gold standard.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought that he was kind of like an underdog wrestler. He was a great tag team champion. He was a great intercontinental champion.
Yeah.
Athletic. Like he's one of the kind of first guys I remember just jumping straight to the top rope.
Yeah, that's right.
From the mat, and I was like, shit, like, wow, can't believe someone can do that, athletic ability, had a good move set, a great tag team champion, part of like the Team Angle when him and Charlie Haas used to tag team as well. That was pretty awesome. He's still in the wrestling now. He's kind of like a jobber nowadays.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He's kind of come up to the end of his career, I think, or WWE just think, this guy's old, we don't want to push him anymore, Shelton Benjamin for me, number 8.
Yeah, he's a wrestler that really took off at the beginning. I guess his tag team maybe a champion, and then a really good intercontinental champion. And he was one of the most athletic wrestlers I've seen. Yeah. And he was a fun wrestler, and I always thought he was a future champion possibly. But then he kind of disappeared. He must have left the company and maybe went somewhere else. And then he came back later, and they never really pushed him, unfortunately. So I never felt like he got to as good as he was. I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, the thing is, yeah, you're right. Like, he had a point where he was Intercontinental champion and was starting to push him more. Like, I think there was one time he beat Triple H. And obviously back then, that was huge.
That's huge, yeah.
And then he had that match with Shawn Michaels, that famous one where he got Sweet Chin Music off the top rope when he jumped and landed that Sweet Chin Music. I definitely thought he was going to be a future champion, but then WWE released him later on down the line and then kind of just brought him back eventually. But yeah, I just felt like he was a very underdog and kind of underrated wrestler. I don't think it was utilized to what he could have. Really.
I think so. He came back as kind of the lackey for Bobby Lashley for a while. And I think he was tag champion for a little bit, but he was always just getting manhandled by Bobby Lashley. And they're trying to show how good Bobby Lashley was, but I was like, I don't like him just rolling over Shelton Benjamin like he's nothing.
Yeah.
He said, because I felt like he was a better wrestler than that. But WWE does that a lot. They take some wrestlers I like, and they don't utilize their talent, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah,
true. Joe says, I was never a fan of Andre the Giant, a legend in the business, but that was simply because he was probably the first giant in pro wrestling.
Yeah. Again, me and Joe were watching wrestling. We never grew up in that era with him and Hogan and the power slam and stuff. It usually just being like highlights, in these big WrestleMania moments and stuff like that in history. So we never really grew up in that era, but I get a bit like Joe. I would probably agree. I can respect what he did and the fact that he was a huge guy, but never really favorites, I guess.
I just never thought he was. I just thought he was just. There's nobody his size. I mean, to compare, it'd be like the Big Show. Maybe he was the only guy that could compete with him on size. Maybe, and so he didn't have anybody. Yeah, he can manhandle anybody at any time. He would have to, let people get one over on him because you couldn't beat him if he went toe to toe for real. Like he couldn't beat Andre the Giant. He would just kill everybody. so he never really was I think he was maybe a one-time WWE champion, WWF champion, but he never really pushed for championships. He just was almost like a gimmick or a
like an attraction.
Attraction.
Yeah.
He was more of an attraction than anything else. Let's bring all the Andre the Giant out and let's see him beat up a bunch of guys. You know, and they put him against like 5 guys or something. He just beat them up, and that was fun to watch. But when in the 80s, he was kind of on his way out. He's already kind of having back problems, I think, and he was moving very slow around the ring. So, yeah, by the time I kind of was watching him, he was like, this guy is so slow and he's big. So he's definitely, his heyday, I think, was before wrestling really took off. Was more territory wrestling was really where he was big at. Because like I said, I'm sure he was fun to watch live because they're like, this guy's a monster. 10 foot tall, 500 pounds or whatever he was. You got Man of Movies, who I'm not sure. I don't know if I've met this guy before, but I don't know if you have, Mike, or.
I think I've seen one or two of my videos in the past, but I'm not sure. I can't quite remember. But hey, tune in.
Yeah, glad to have you here. Usually we're talking about movies. Today we're talking about wrestling. So I've been a wrestling fan my whole life, and funny enough, my first company wasn't WWE but TNA. 2007 TNA was amazing. I never got into TNA though. They had guys like Sting, Kurt Angle, Christian went over there and was really big. I think Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was kind of aware of what was going on in TNA, but I never really watched it. It just wasn't as big, I guess, as WWE was. So he says Shelton and Cedric in the Hurt Business. Yeah, the Hurt Business. Could have gone so much farther. I agree because they're both really good wrestlers. But on the other hand, they knew they have with Bobby Lashley, the single competitor. Yeah, they were there to make Bobby Lashley look good mostly. Which Bobby Lashley is from Kansas, by the way. So, so I like to go, yes, the Kansas guy. Balding Boomer. I hate the way they use Zack Ryder. Yeah, interesting. He was kind of popular, but he never really made it real big. I mean, he was Intercontinental Champion, maybe, and Tag Team Champion for them. But yeah, I can see he had kind of a big following, I think, because he was really good with social media and stuff. So yeah, I can understand that. We had Man Mountain Mike back in the day.
Who's that?
He's the big guy, is my guess. With that kind of name. There's a name for you, Mike. Man Mountain.
Man Mountain Mike.
No, I don't know if you're quite a mountain, Mike. No offense.
5'5". No. Definitely not.
Here's one for you, Mike. Joe says, I remember being on vacation with the family in Florida when we went to see TNA when it first started. Okay. When they're performing at Universal Studios. Okay.
Yeah. They got some photos at home, like Buff Bangwell and stuff was there at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, right?
All right. So we did your number 8, Mike, right? Or we have for Norin?
Yes.
Okay. I got distracted there. Okay, Norin, you're number 8.
All right. So he already did get brought up, but it is Rey Mysterio Jr. is my number 8.
All right.
And mainly just because, you know, like I said, luchador wrestling, like he was kind of that picture perfect, like one when I think of that wrestling, it was him and Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
And the stuff that they would do, like you said, in WCW back in the day was revolutionized cruiserweight wrestling and what you could do in the squared circle. You know what I mean? So that's why I loved it. And like I said, another thing is I, you know, was like, oh, he's my height. I'm like, damn, like if I actually got fit and I can like do some of this stuff, I can be that wrestler. You know what I mean? That's how it felt too. So that's what's great. And like you brought up, now he passed it down to his son and he's trying to get him involved in the business. Even if his son doesn't reach the heights of him, it's still amazing that he's been able to have the family life, have a wife, have a son. And like, you know, because a lot of wrestlers, they don't even get to have that and stuff. And Rey Mysterio's kept it going. And like I said, his longevity, his career has lasted a long time. He's got cool masks and cool costumes all the time, creative stuff. So, yeah, Rey Mysterio is my number 8.
Nice. All right, good. We have first time we got 2 on the same. That's good. I wonder if all 3 of us will have one on our list. I'm kind of curious because there's so many great wrestlers. We can have completely different lists almost. There's so many good ones put on there. Yeah, obviously love that choice, Rey Mysterio Jr. Number 8 for me is the excellence of execution, Bret the Hitman Hart. The best there ever was, is, and ever will be. Bret Hart, like, he's just, to me, like one of the best just in-ring wrestlers. He's kind of known as like the what do you call it? Technician, you know what I'm saying?
Technical wrestling, yeah, he's the best technical, yeah.
If you talk about technical, like Kurt Angle is like definitely like one of the best technical wrestlers, I would say. And Bret Hart back in the like late 80s into the 90s was like, he was like the gold standard to me of like technical wrestling. And like, he wasn't the best on mic guy, but I didn't think he was terrible. He got kind of criticized for that, but man, in ring, he was so good. The moves that he would put on, and just perfect, and put on so many great matches. I especially love him and Owen when they would go at it, because obviously I loved Owen too. I thought Owen was a really good wrestler, and I thought he could have been bigger. But like, they had a wrestling match at WrestleMania like 10 or something like that, where they began the WrestleMania, and they went toe to toe for like 30 minutes, and it was like one of the best matches. They knew each other so well, and they had similar moves somewhat, but yeah, Bret Hart, he was huge like back in the, I want to say, early 90s. Like the Hulk Hogan era was kind of starting to dwindle, and Bret Hart really kind of came up, and he was kind of really the big wrestler in WWF. I would say like early 90s maybe, into the mid 90s. Like, he was really one of the top guys. And I love the look, the pink tights with the leather jacket, the sunglasses.
Yeah.
He made a pretty good iconic look. And I mean, and the Hart Foundation, when you think of like, even, I don't know if there, I mean, you got Natalie, was it Natalie, not Hart?
Natalia.
So I mean, it feels like the Hart just have this great legacy in wrestling. I mean, coming from Canada, his dad, Stu Hart, started I think the Calgary or something, Stampede, I forget, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have I think it's the Hart Dungeon, where he trained, like, Chris Jericho trained there and all kinds of people.
Yeah, it was a badge of honor if you went through the Hart Dungeon, because you just got tortured by Hart just tortured you. Like, it was terrible, but you wore it like a badge of honor. Like, I got through the Hart Dungeon. So there's such a great legacy with the Hart family, through Jim Neidhart and the British Bulldog, even to Natalia. Anyways, and yeah, even guys that train there, like Chris Jericho and some of those Canadian wrestlers, like, would train there. Anyways, but yeah, Bret Hart, he was just, like I said, when I started watching, he was like the top of his game. Of course, and then he had the whole, right when I started watching, it was the Montreal screw job kind of happened. So I just caught.
Oh no.
And of course, most of my Bret Hart watching was like watching, previous matches, like on TV, and catching up with his history. And I've read his book and everything. And then he came to WCW, so I kind of knew him in WCW more. But he had great matches there with Diamond Dallas Page and Goldberg and Sting and all that. And he was eventually champion there. But I mean, you look back, he had so many great matches with like Stone Cold Steve Austin, with Shawn Michaels, with Undertaker. He was a guy that could just have a good match with just about anybody, it felt like. And he was just, like I said, he wasn't the flashiest wrestler, but man, he was just so good in the ring, and he knew how to put on a good match. Anyway, so I felt like I had to put him here on my top 10, here at number 8. Let's see.
Go pick, man.
Nice.
I kind of backed up on my comments here. All right. It says, sorry for the intrusion. Like, a first time watcher. Well, thank you. Sub to Did You See That? and part of the movie tube community. Okay. And the Cinema Squad. So you guys were talking wrestling, how to join. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Good, yeah.
Great to have you. Joseph one, same. I've lived in Orlando my whole life and still do. Still try to catch them when they come back. Yeah, Florida is kind of the big state for wrestling, I guess, right?
That's where they train a lot of wrestlers. Yeah, a lot of them come out of there. That's where they go to down there, and then they go to NXT and learn how to kind of, do their mic stuff and hone their skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, Florida's like the place to go, basically. Yeah, I don't know if it was for WCW too and WWF. I don't know. It was just like I don't know why Florida's the place. Even Hulk Hogan. I think Hulk Hogan went to Florida and trained or something with somebody in Florida. I thought maybe when he was first starting out, but I don't know. But it always seemed like Florida was like the place to go. I mean, you went to Florida or you went to like Canada and one of the Hearts maybe would have like a wrestling training thing. And anyways, but yeah, so it's very interesting. Big John Studd was tall. Yeah. I don't think he was quite as tall as Andre, but he was probably the second tallest guy back in the 80s era. Yeah. I like Rey Mysterio back in ECW. That's right. Yeah. He was in ECW too. I don't know how he's still around because I feel like he's gone. I think he's had so many knee surgeries over the years.
Yeah.
Because of all the moves he does with his legs. But yeah. See, Joe says TNA was a really solid company. Hate the way it is now with barely anyone at shows. I feel like they probably don't have too much long before they go bust. Are they still around, TNA?
Yeah, they still have their own. Everything they do is like funded by them and stuff. They have their own station, or Fight TV or something like that.
I thought they kind of, I don't know, when AEW came about, AEW kind of came the next big thing. It was kind of like when WCW left, it was just like the WWE was like felt like the only wrestling in business in town. Then TNA kind of tried to compete, but they couldn't quite compete with WWE. And now AEW, I think, is doing a pretty good job competing with them. So AEW is maybe the best wrestling company I've seen since WCW as far as competing. But TNA kind of was in that level, I guess, because they did have some big names in the organization. And Glenn says Hitman is number one. Well, Glenn's from Canada, so yeah, sure, he'd be number one for you.
Definitely is number one. Yeah.
He's one of the Canadian best for sure. Says I think Ray needs one last good run with the WWE and then maybe go back into training and coaching role. Yeah. Right now he's just putting his son over. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not liking the current state of Ray's right now. Yeah.
I agree.
I was so surprised when he came back because I thought, shouldn't this guy be retiring? It seems like he's been around for so long. He's not as quick as he used to be, but I mean, he's gotten older.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of wrestlers like that. They stay way too long. It feels like they're like in their 50s. I'm like, you're getting just a little too old. Like Hulk Hogan and
Ric Flair did it too.
Ric Flair was like 59. I'm like, how is this guy still wrestling? Like, it's insane. I would think you'd be like, I'm 39. I think I couldn't handle the bumps and everything.
Nah.
Macho Man Savage. Yeah, I really like Macho Man. Great one.
Yeah, I think Rey Mysterio probably has like maybe a last run in him. I think he will probably have. He'll probably feud with Dominic, his son.
Yeah.
Which they'll even split brands. They'll do something where they mesh together. Probably WrestleMania. And I think Dominic will beat him like 3 on the line, and I think he'll be gone then.
I would think that'd be a good storyline.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear that W is very close to getting Brett to come out of retirement to wrestle Kurt Angle? Oh, man.
Please don't.
Bret Hart doesn't move around very good. I don't think he could wrestle.
I mean, do you guys remember that WrestleMania when he came back to face Vince McMahon?
Yeah. Yeah, they even put the Intercontinental title on him for a short period when he came back. And I think he wrestled, Vince McMahon. And he was not moving around the ring very good anymore.
Both those guys, they retired. That's it.
Yeah, Angle is another one where he came back. It's like, okay, cool, but he just wasn't quite the same wrestler when he came back. But yeah. All right, so that was our number 8. So now we're going to number 7, Mike.
Number 7. Okay, let's have a look. Right. All right, yeah. So number 7 for me is a wrestler that came to WWE quite a few years ago now, and he debuted at the Royal Rumble. He was a guy who was originally a TNA guy, but I didn't used to watch TNA, and I know he was big then. Yeah. So when he came to WWE, I was like, who's the phenomenal one kind of thing, you know? I was like, who's this guy? You know, I've never heard of him. And then there was like AJ Styles. And I was like, who's AJ Styles? I mean, I've heard the name, but I've never seen him wrestle and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so, you know, when he came to WWE, like, I thought, like, oh, wow, this guy's awesome. He's not a small guy. He's not a tall guy. He's kind of like in between. He's quite built, but he's quite, like, athletic. He's got a good moveset. He's got something, like, different because I feel like one of the things that kind of separate wrestlers now compared to when we used to watch it is a lot of wrestlers now just mainly do, like, a kick or, like, a super kick that is so common now.
Yeah, so common.
Whereas that back when we used to watch it was specifically for like Shawn Michaels' sweet chin music kind of thing, you know? As now it's just flown about all the time. I'm like, it's not dangerous move anymore. It's a generic move.
Yeah.
But AJ Styles doing like these flips, the Styles Clash is such a unique finisher. And I was like, wow, this guy's awesome. Like he could be Intercontinental Champion, it could be United States Champion, Intercontinental Tag Team Champion. At the moment, I know he's fighting like the Judgment Day and stuff, and I'm not really a fan of that. I'd rather him get back in the big picture.
Yeah.
But I think the issue is like, I mean, that's a different subject. That's with like Roman Reigns and stuff. Not here to talk about that. But yeah, he's just an entertaining wrestler, and he's had some funny promos with Chris Jericho, and Jericho was in WWE, and he had like the list. And then I remember like there was a Survivor Series. It was like Jericho's team and AJ Styles' team. And he's like, who's that with like the soccer mom haircut?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. So like, I think he's just entertaining guy, you know, and he's just a very unique moveset. So yeah, AJ Styles number 7.
Sweet.
Man, yeah, he didn't make it onto my list, but that was definitely one of the people that I thought about. Like, if I would say today, he was one of my favorite wrestlers wrestling today. For sure.
He's got good in-ring stuff. Like Jason said, he can work with anyone and just make a match entertaining.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like he has like 5 finishers. Like I've never seen someone you have like one finisher or maybe 2. Maybe you have a Smith move and another move. This guy has like, I don't know, he has so many different finishers. Like I feel like, right? He has the flying elbow. Yeah. He has like
Clash. Like he's got like a submission.
He's got a submission move too. Some submission move that he does.
Yeah, he's got the calf thing or something. He also can do like a what you call 450 splash or something like that. I've seen him do finish matches out. I don't know. It's like this guy can do everything. He has so many moves.
Yeah, great wrestler. A bit like you guys both mentioned Rey Mysterio. When I was putting this together, I was thinking about putting him on because he's kind of is a favorite, but I missed him out. So, yeah.
Norin, what's your?
Oh, number 7, right? You're 7, right? Okay, now we're going to the golden era. We're gonna have this is, I think, besides somebody else that's gonna come up later, higher up. This is one of the older wrestlers on my list, and sadly, he has passed away. And it's gonna be the Ultimate Warrior, and he's actually, fun fact, the only wrestler on this top 10 list that I've actually dressed up as for Halloween. I dressed up like the Ultimate Warrior before. But mainly just because that brings me back to my childhood. When I was like 5, 6 years old, like that was my jam. Like, you know, I would watch Ultimate Warrior. He was my favorite. He was the first ever to defeat Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania, and he became a dual champ. So he was Intercontinental and the WWE champ at the same time. And he just had such a great rocket to stardom. Like he was huge. And then it fizzled out. I must confess, like he did fizzle out, and he wasn't longevity. His career didn't last a very long time. He was more of a kind of charisma and a gimmick type thing. He wasn't great on the mic, like Jason said. Like, you know, if we were doing top 10 greats, he wouldn't be on this list. He's on here because he's a favorite to me deep down. I had, like, you know, pillow sheets with his fucking face on them, you know, like that's what I mean. Like, he's that wrestler for me. So Ultimate Warrior, yeah, golden era, that's my jam. So he takes me back.
Okay, cool. I like that. He gets a lot of flack, I feel like, nowadays, because, like, yeah, he was, I don't know, he was hard to work with, maybe, or something.
Yeah, a lot of people say, apparently the only person that really got along with him was Sting. They used to be tag team partners called the Blade Runners way back in the day.
Yeah.
So apparently that's the only person he got along with, and even Sting doesn't have the best stories about him. So it's like, you know, I guess he's just one of those guys, you know, but it's because of the effect he had on me as a child, you know.
But he had one of the best entrances, I think. I always think, like, he had so much energy when he ran out. That was the funnest part, is watching him run out all crazy. And
oh yeah, he'd grab the ropes and he'd just be like shaking them.
Oh, and the crowd goes crazy. And yeah, he was a lot of fun. Actually, yeah, they really were pushing him to be the next big thing after Hulk Hogan, basically. But it lasted for just a little while, him being on top, and then he wasn't quite there, but he definitely was, like, at that time, he was one of the top guys in the WWE, because he had such a great look. He had an amazing look. I imagine you, Norin, maybe didn't look quite as jacked as Ultimate Warrior, but
oh no, yeah, I had the muscle suit, I had the foam suit, and I had, like, the Ultimate Warrior face painted on the chest already, and then I just did face paint, and I had the tassels on my arms and stuff.
I was like, I don't think I'd look very good trying to dress up like him, because I out of shape.
Same.
See, I was there live in Orlando when AJ Styles debuted. Yeah, that would have been amazing. It's funny, if you look at, like, AJ Styles when he was younger, he was like this clean-shaven guy.
Yeah, short hair.
And then he came to WWE, and he's got the mom haircut and the face and the beard, and yeah, I was kind of shocked when I saw him. I was like, that's AJ Styles. He looks so different.
I think it's like, since he became a dad, he's got the more family dad look thing going on.
Yeah, he's in incredible shape, and he's, like, in his upper 40s probably now. But yeah,
that's awesome. No,
followed his career since I was a kid, going to TNA. Yeah, that'd be amazing. When I say the ring exploded, I mean it exploded. I imagine if you watch his older matches, he was incredible. His the kind of things he would do, like flipping outside the ring onto people. I mean, yeah, he's one of the most athletic guys I've seen. But a great choice. Styles is top 3.
Yeah, I think it's different, because obviously we're mentioning favorite wrestlers, not like greatest wrestlers or like who our greats are. So it's more, I'm going more like entertainment factor and stuff, you know.
Yeah. It says, Mike, you mentioned TNA, but have you seen Styles matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling? I haven't, but
oh, he did great. He used to run with the Bullet Club. So him, Finn Balor, all of them are from Japan, and they all know each other from back then. So now that he's having that kind of rivalry with Judgment Day, a lot of people who are fans of them from the Japan era are loving this, because, you know, AJ Styles and Finn Balor have been like that since they've come out of, like, the indies together.
Yeah, and there's that tag team, right, that also came with them.
The OC.
Luke Gallows, and I forgot it was Luke Gallows, and I forgot the other guy's name. I forgot. I'm sorry, but
yeah, I'm forgetting their names now. But yeah, they also came, I think, together. But yeah, and when AJ Styles was facing off with Nakamura, what's his name?
Shinsuke Nakamura. Yeah.
These guys had a rivalry in Japan, which I had no idea. So I'm like, that was kind of cool, because I was like, so AJ and Shinsuke, like, went back, I guess. And they've known for having, like, good matches in Japan or something. Kind of interesting.
But no, I never saw the matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling, just highlights, you know, like TNA highlights and stuff like that.
I hear about it, but yeah, I've never gone to New Japan Wrestling.
Same.
He says Ultimate Warrior was a marketing machine.
Yeah.
Ultimate Warrior finisher was terrible. That's true.
Yeah, that's the one thing, is like, he didn't. That's why I think he didn't last long, is because he didn't really evolve. He didn't commit to, like, how like Undertaker, when you want to create a gimmick that's going to last decades, you have to be able to evolve in some fashion. You can't just be the same forever.
Right.
Yeah, he never had a really good finisher. That's for sure. That would have been, that would maybe put him up a little bit higher if he would have. And Glenn says, curious if you guys will have any women. I didn't put any women on my list. We just made it a.
Yeah,
man, we'll have to do top 10 women. We'll get together again maybe next year and we'll do top 10 women for sure.
I feel so much difference between men and women in wrestling. I don't know. It's kind of hard to compare them.
I think a women's list would be cool.
Yeah, I could do a women's list. That'd be cool.
Definitely.
All right. Okay, so you have to. Okay, so we're doing number 7, right? It's my turn.
Number 7.
Okay, number 7 is one that maybe out of all the wrestlers, I don't know if this is more of a hot take or not, but it's one of the wrestlers that, he's just to me one of the coolest looking wrestlers, and that's Jeff Hardy. I don't know if that's out of the box. I feel like that's my most out of the box wrestler in my top 10. Because most of them are pretty big names that are. I mean, Jeff Hardy's a big name, but the other ones are more well known. I feel like, but Jeff Hardy, like when he came out with the Hardy Boys, like I fell in love with the Hardy Boys. They were like the coolest tag team I've ever seen. And Jeff Hardy, the way he comes off of, his high flying abilities and his innovativeness was so amazing. And I just love the look, the long hair, with the arm tattoo, with the sleeves that he put on. And he came out to that music and he's, doing the head banging. Like,
yeah.
So cool. Like, I love the whole package. In wrestling, you have their in-ring ability. He wasn't an on-mic guy, really, but he was a great in-ring wrestler. And you also have like this, it's also about branding, and making a really cool brand and cool look, and it's about the the music, the intro, it all goes into wrestling, costume, intro, attitude, charisma, and man, he was just so cool when he came out, and I was just like so on fire. And then when he got into his solo, I never thought he was going to be this big solo wrestler. I always thought, man, he was one of the best tag team wrestlers I've ever seen. And then when he got into solo, he quickly became a good mid-carder, getting the Intercontinental title. Him and John Morrison had some great matches together for the IC belt. And he even had like a really great match with like the Undertaker and Triple H. He would have really good matches, which was something because those were the big names at the time. So I was like, wow, this guy's going toe to toe with some of the big names. But yeah, he was one of those guys. To me, he's so innovative. I love Whisper in the Wind when he would jump off of when he'd get thrown into the corner and he would jump off and do like this twist flip thing. And I was like, oh, that was like the coolest move. I remember him and Umaga. They used to have a rivalry and they had a cage match and there was one where it's Hell in a Cell maybe where you can climb on top. You're supposed to climb over the top of the cage, whatever.
Yeah.
And he climbed onto the top of the cage and did like a Whisper in the Winds on top of Umaga. And I was like, oh my God, like he did some of the most insane stunts I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he'd get on these really tall, just incredibly tall ladders and do the his move where he lands on Swanton Bomb, where he lands on his back on top of a guy on top of a table. And it was like, this guy's like going to kill himself. He'd do these high flying moves. And like, I don't know, he's one of the best at just doing these incredible high flying stunts and stuff. And they're like, I don't know how the guy's still walking afterwards. And yeah, he was just so fun in the ring. Like I said, and he was WWE champion 3 times, I believe. And he was another guy, which I thought was an underdog, who I was like so happy when he won. I was like, yes, give this guy a chance, because he's not your typical champion wrestler. And so I always go for those guys where I'm like, yes, I love, like, he's not totally jacked or anything. Like, he's decently in shape. I mean, he's better in shape than I am, obviously, but I feel like I could look like Jeff Hardy if I worked at it. He's not like totally like jacked or anything like some of the other bigger wrestlers. But he was just, he's just so good in the ring and so entertaining to watch. So He was probably my favorite wrestler for a while there. Like, I would say, if I could pick one wrestler, like in the ring, like he was the guy. I mean, and he went up against, like I said, Triple H. I've seen him go up against Shawn Michaels and have good matches. Rey Mysterio, John Cena, even. I mean, he had great matches with everybody. Of course, him and Matt were great as well. Unfortunately, like he seemed like he right at his prime, he got into drug trouble, so he kind of got released.
Yeah.
And he went off to TNA, and I know he had a lot of drug problems, and he was in TNA, and then he came back to WWE, and he wasn't quite the same wrestler, but he was still getting pushed a little bit for the mid-carder. And then I think he went out to AEW, maybe. I don't know if he's still there. It seemed like he bounced.
Yeah, I think he had problems. Yeah, to do it again. Like they released him, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, if it wasn't for the drug problem being released, to me, he maybe could even been better. But still, yeah, he was definitely one of my favorites. Jeff Hardy at number 7.
Yeah, good pick.
Nice. Oh, before we get to number 6, though, I'm going to hit the restroom real quick. Before we get to number 6, I will be back.
Well, yeah, no, Jeff Hardy's a good pick. Good pick. I'll not say much more.
Because when he came out with with Matt Hardy and Lita, and they were Team Extreme, I don't know, something different. It was just the way they looked. They had like these like skin tight like t-shirts. Their hair was like wet all the time for some reason. They had like this long back hair, and just some of their moves, like I said, even Matt Hardy too was too. They came up with some really great wrestling tag team moves.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I'm forgetting names now, but like the main finisher, like he would do, and then Jeff Hardy do the Swanton Bomb on top of him, and yeah, so fun.
Oh yeah, put it in the line, yeah.
The best women wrestlers are currently on television. I agree. This is kind of the legend from the years ago. Women's wrestling has changed so much since.
Oh yeah, Charlotte Flair's great. She's fabulous. Ric Flair's daughter, she's fabulous.
She's amazing. When I was watching wrestling in the 90s, they're mostly just eye candy, I feel like. So they weren't really known for their wrestling ability.
I still love Trish Stratus. She's was big back in the day. She really, modernized how wrestling would go into the future.
Yeah, she was definitely like the top when she was around. Her and Lita always felt like were the top 2.
Yeah.
And then but we can go into that on the women's. But today it's they're amazing today. I used to never watch them when they would wrestle. I'd be like, I don't care. But today I'm like, I kind of like watching them wrestle now. They put on pretty good matches, so I think they've gone a long way.
Getting better, yeah.
He said Jeff Hardy was the definition of cool. That's what I would think. Shame that he's yeah.
Yeah.
See, I agree. Today's women wrestlers are awesome. Yep. Joe says, I love Jeff Hardy when he first came to WWE as a jobber. Yeah, he first or they really pushed him as like one of the main wrestlers. Yeah, they were just jobbing to people. I love the Hardy Boys hippie look. Yeah. Always loved that time when Kane attacked them in the jobber days.
Yeah. No, Kane was like when they made Kane a monster, like when he first came, just beat everybody.
Yeah, he just come down and just demolish everybody. Kind of like Brock Lesnar does that too. He just comes out and just demolishes people for the fun of it. All right, so now we're to number 6, if I'm right. Yep. Mike?
Number 6. Yeah. So for me, number 6 is a person that was in WWE, then I think got let go by WWE, went to AEW, and now they're back in WWE, and that's Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So for me, again, I think another great wrestler who started as started solo, then in a group with Randy Orton and Ted DiBiase Jr. as Legacy, I believe they were called. Yeah. And obviously then you could see like kind of early potentials in him. He was athletic kind of guy again, kind of like medium-sized build and stuff. I've met him twice in person, actually really, really cool guy. And yeah, you know,
does the bloodline? Is that the bloodline? Did he do?
That's Roman Reigns.
Oh, okay,
like his cronies at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just felt like he was like a guy starting out, like again, like Intercontinental Championship material. He brought in the white belt Intercontinental title, which I think is one of the best looking titles that they've had for the Intercontinental Championship. And he's always seen as a kind of like a mid carder, and then when he got let go, which I think was a huge shame.
Yeah,
went to AEW where he helped start and found AEW, which goes to show that he's a great businessman as well. And then there he won like the world title. He put on some great matches, and then finally he came back to WWE. And I mean, he's only had a short run so far because he's been injured.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guy wrestled in a Hell in a Cell with a bloody torn pec. He was all pink.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anyone wrestle like that. Like clearly torn injury, and the doctor's been like, "You're not wrestling," and he's like, "Screw you! I'm going out there to wrestle." You know. For the sake of the storytelling and the rivalry, he's like, I'm going to do it, put myself through pain. So yeah, I just think he's a great wrestler. I'm glad that he's finally getting some more recognition he deserves, and I'm looking forward to what he's got coming up in the future. I hope he can be the one who beats Roman Reigns.
I was going to say that. I want to see somebody beat Roman Reigns. Like, I want to see his legs, I want to see his reign end at some point.
Yeah, they'll probably do it at like WrestleMania or something coming up.
I think Rhodes would be perfect. I always thought that. Yeah, when he came back, I was like, oh, this is a good. Because, when he was with WWE, to me, he was a future star. I thought he was so good in the ring. In fact, I'd say I like him better than even Goldust, and I like Goldust as well. But and his dad, I didn't really watch his dad so much, but I know he was big, of course. Dusty Rhodes.
Oh yeah.
But I think Cody Rhodes might be the best out of the three of them, in fact. And when he went off to Ring of Honor, he really, I thought, grew and like became a main eventer and really showed that he could be one of the top wrestlers. And then, of course, AEW. And I really love to see what he does in WWE, because I've really only seen him in WrestleMania against Seth Rollins. Which was great. I loved seeing him come back, and he's really become a main eventer, which I'm really happy for that he came back, and hopefully he can be a main eventer now in the WWE. Do you know when he's coming back? Or
I think he's in training at the moment to return. I think he's maybe trying to come back for the Royal Rumble.
Okay.
I think just like he's a great example of one of these wrestlers where WWE really underutilized someone. They go away into a different company and they realize, oh, we shouldn't have let this person go. We should have actually given him a push and stuff.
Yeah.
And he proved that. And then look, now they're like, oh, well, we'll sign him back. And then they'll have to give him a bigger paycheck now to sign him back. You know? And I mean, there's a lot of wrestlers, probably some on our lists, like we've mentioned and stuff, you know, like, but he's like, oh, we shouldn't have, like Jeff Hardy, you mentioned Jason, WWE, then he went to TNA and they're like, oh man, we shouldn't have let go of Jeff Hardy, you know? And then they brought him back, kind of thing. So, it'd be interesting to see where it goes. I think the original plan was when he came back, he actually did an advertisement promo for the Money in the Bank event that they have, pay-per-view this year. Like he was actually on like an advertisement on like a baseball field, being like, "Oh, tune into Money in the Bank and stuff." But that was the time he got injured, so I think he would have won the contract,
won the Money in the Bank,
and probably cashed it in to win. But didn't know, like, I'll have to go backup plan kind of thing. So we'll see. But what's your guys' number 6?
Yo, Norin.
All right, so my number 6, we're gonna bring in the rated R superstar Edge. And, you know, he's had a lot of famous matches with Jeff Hardy. Jason will know. So Edge was a big part of my life, mainly because at that time when he and the Dudley Boys and the Hardy Boys, they started their big feud.
That was so
tag team wrestling was it. It wasn't even about single wrestling anymore. It was all about tag team and the TLC matches, which were some of the greatest matches that have ever been filmed in wrestling history. Yeah. So, and to be that Edge and the Hardy Boys and Dudley Boys, those guys, like, they came up with that stuff, those matches, they created that for us. And he's just a genius. And the fact that he's still wrestling today, you know what I mean? And he had a neck injury where he got spinal stenosis in his back, and like he shouldn't even be wrestling right now, but he did the rehab. He did all the stuff his doctor told him to do, and he made it back. And he's, you know what I mean, now wrestling, you know, has his little thing with Judgment Day. They kind of floored him for a bit, but I think he's going to come back eventually too. And so, yeah, he's just a monumental one in my life because of that reason. And, you know, he's married to Beth Phoenix. He married a wrestler too. So I thought that was pretty funny too. You know, he's got a wrestling wife, and now she's got this kind of little feud thing going on with Rhea Ripley and stuff like that. So it's quite fabulous to see a wrestler that I knew my whole life. I saw him come in green as grass when he came into the WWE. And now he's, you know, grown up, he's matured, and I've seen his whole career. Oh yeah, the Brood, yeah, with Gangrel. So it's like that whole evolution of what he's done. And I believe he's actually second to title reigns in history. He's held 31 title reigns he's had while he's been with the WWE, and that's just phenomenal. That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
He's achieved a lot.
Yeah.
One of the memories I always remember about Edge, besides all that, is like that time when they did like a live sex celebration.
Yes.
Yeah, with Lita. Yeah, like I can't believe they asked him to do that, man.
Well, I think he was dating Lita at the time, so he's probably like, oh, another excuse to get a bra and panties. Hell yeah, you know.
I know. Yeah. That's when he did he also went to the Radar Superstar, and then he really took off. That whole gimmick that he did, or whatever that, I don't know what you want to call it. Great villain wrestler. And yeah, as a solo wrestler, he won, I want to say 10 heavyweight title. I mean, which is pretty insane because you don't usually, like the big ones used to win like maybe 4 or 5 at the most. Then you got guys like Triple H and John Cena and The Rock and all this that are winning, you know, almost 10 titles. I mean, or more.
Yeah.
And Edge was one of those, which is kind of surprising because I never thought he'd be that big. But yeah, he's definitely proven himself. And I can't came back. That was such a shock.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they're giving him a push they haven't given him a push for the championship. I don't know if they ever will, but
no, I think he's just going to be kind of one of those legends that lets other people grow. You know, they'll let him like team up with other people, and he'll just fuel their rise to being a star.
Yeah, because I thought they were giving a push when he won the Royal Rumble, but that didn't, I guess, happen. But that's really cool to see him come back. Because I would say he was still in his prime when he left, but he had so many injuries, he had to leave, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a very good pick. I definitely considered Edge. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, Glenn has to leave. See you, Glenn. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye, Glenn.
So Cody's a solid wrestler. Also met him at Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando. Cody's best within the next year. I agree. I think he has a good run in him here pretty soon.
Yeah, 100%.
Dirt sheets are reporting that Cody will win the Royal Rumble and then beat Roman at Mania.
I think what will happen I might be wrong, but I think with Roman Reigns, even if you want the title off him, like him and the Bloodline, for me personally, is probably one of the best things going right now on the WWE, and that story with Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they have him drop a title, but drop one of the 2 titles. Because I do kind of miss like SmackDown and Raw having their own world champion.
I agree totally. Yeah, that's one big thing for me. I hate that it's like one thing right now.
Yeah, I think it takes away like because you've got like a lot of these guys who are like fighting for the US title, and I'm like these guys like AJ Styles or Seth Rollins or something, like those guys should be fighting for the world title, you know? Yeah. And like the undercard guys fighting for the United States title. But I feel because Roman's got them all, they're like, we can't really push anyone towards that at the moment, you know? So yeah. We'll see.
I think Edge is one, if not the greatest heels of all. He was a great heel wrestler.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's right up there with Ric Flair.
He was so good. Mike, I wouldn't say WWE. I would say the Bloodline with Sami is the thing in wrestling today.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's entertaining. That's one thing that's I think that's why he's got a long reign, because that storyline is just really entertaining, Sami Uso.
I know, he's great. He's great. It's comedy gold.
Right, it is.
All right, I think I'm ready for my number 6, if I remember right.
Go. Who's next?
My number 6 was huge in WCW. Probably my favorite WCW wrestler, and that's Sting. I kind of remember him in the early '90s. He had the half like face paint thing and the blonde hair, and then when I saw him in 1997, he looked like the Crow. All of a sudden, he had remember that transition where it's like, what is going on? Sting like totally changed himself, and I absolutely loved it. I loved his look, and that was one of the things when I started really getting obsessed with the wrestling. And Sting came in, I was like, who's this guy? This guy looks, I just absolutely loved the way he looked with the white face paint, the long black hair, the black trench coat, the baseball bat. And he would come in, I suppose it was goofy at the time, but he would like, because he used to drop down from the ceiling. And NWO was the big bad guys, Hollywood Hulk Hogan and NWO. And Sting would come down from the rafters, and he would unhook himself, and then he would just start. There'd be like 10 wrestlers, and he would just throw. And I was like, I look back at it, I was like, that's probably pretty goofy, but it was fun at the time, just watching him just chop everybody and throw him out of the ring, and like he looked invincible. But like as a kid, I absolutely loved that. I was like, this guy's amazing. No one can beat this guy. And he came in at a really great storyline where Hulk Hogan was the champion and NWO was taking over WCW. So it was this NWO versus WCW storyline. And so Sting came in and challenged him at Starrcade '97. And it was supposed to be like this really big match. And it was like for the fate of the company. So it had this huge, like, storyline. And like, it's like, and everybody, you had to go for Sting because they're like, no, NWO can't win. We need to save the company. So it's like the whole company was on his shoulders. Like he had to win to say it's silly now, but it's like at the time I was so into that storyline of like, yes, you got to save the company, Sting. But anyways, and so after that, I was like, Sting was like my favorite wrestler. I was so huge on him. I think, and he put on some great matches. I remember him and Bret Hart and Dom Zales Page and Goldberg and Hulk Hogan. Oh man, their matches were so good. Say what you still, WCW did have some problems, but they still had some pretty good matches, I thought, at the time. And Sting was a multiple heavyweight champion for them. And I love when NWO split up and they had the NWO Wolfpack and kind of headed by Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. And they were the black and red. They were red and black, while NWO, there's the NWO black and white, and they all wore black and white. And Sting changed to red face paint, and he had like, instead of black and white, he had a red and black outfit. Oh man, he looked so cool. And yeah, he was one of those guys that he was stronger than you thought. He was super strong because he was a bodybuilder. Like him and the Ultimate Warrior were bodybuilders together, and that's how they got into wrestling. And so he was really strong, and he was very good around the ring, and he had the Stinger Splash and the Stinger Death Drop. I thought that was so cool. Finisher. But yeah, unfortunately, like he didn't come over to WWE right away, so I kind of lost track of him. He went to TNA, and I know it was big over there. And man, I was so excited when he came back to the WWE though, and had that match with Triple H at WrestleMania. Like, I just absolutely love that. He can't, even though he was like in his upper 50s by then, I think he was because he's getting pretty old now. But I love seeing him come back, and yeah, just definitely one of my big nostalgia picks on my list, because I was the hugest fan when I was a kid of Sting back in my junior high school days. So yeah, Sting number 6 on my list.
Perfect, awesome pick.
Nice, yeah, good pick, man.
Just says, I totally agree. I always tell people that these are the best wrestlers of any era and some of the worst storylines. Luckily, Triple H is in charge now, and the product has been sparkling. because I thought Triple H did a great job with NXT. He really made them a kind of a cool brand. But then I think he got taken off of NXT. And I haven't been watching NXT since he kind of, I think, wasn't on there anymore.
Yeah, I think with NXT, I mean, I guess that's a different discussion. But I mean, for me personally, I think Norin was saying he doesn't watch NXT. I
don't really watch it as much anymore.
I watch like odd highlights, but I think NXT peaked when it was like Roman Reigns, Adrian Neville, like Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, that era. I feel like
Kevin Owens, Kevin Owens was there too. Like that, they kind of created this NXT 2 era.
Yeah.
What's his name? McIntyre. I loved McIntyre when he came through.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like that era was good. Like McIntyre, Bobby Roode, and stuff like that. Like the wrestlers. But then, like nowadays, it's just a lot of these wrestlers just do super kicks all the time, and that's like, oh, they're doing a kick. I'm like, there's nothing unique about them. It seems like they're in like little like baby shoes, and I'm like, you should be more advanced than that, really. But yeah.
I'm sorry if I go on a tangent here, but do you feel like back in the day, it was like you hit them with your finisher, and that was the end of the match? And then all of a sudden became you had to hit them with 5 finishers before you can end the match. And I feel like it's overdone now, where you have to hit them so many times with your finisher. And I'm thinking, like, I don't know. So they always have these like, oh, he's going to win. Then, oh, no, he kicked out. And I'm like, they kick out too many times. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, it's stretched a little bit now, I think, personally. Yeah. Like you said, though, it was right. Like The Rock would hit a rock bottom and you're done.
That's done. Yeah.
Stone Cold Stunner, you're done. Nowadays.
I think it's now. Now they just don't do, like you said, storytelling. They don't focus on that anymore. It's like all about the high spots and the moments. It's not like there's a story. Oh, like this guy's knee's hurt, and like let me work his knee a bit, and then we're pulling for that guy because he's hurt. Kind of all that. They don't really do that as much like they used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting to our number 5, top 5 here for you, Mike.
Top 5. Let's go.
All right, cool. So yeah, number 5 is a little bit of a different one. I've actually put my list a little bit. Number 5 is a guy that growing up, I watched this guy. He changed his gimmick quite a few times, and that is the Undertaker. Growing up, I was talking to these guys before the stream. I was watching it with my older brother growing up, and it was kind of first introduction, and it's kind of like when Undertaker was in the Ministry of Darkness phase, and I was actually scared of the guy at that point, and at times I have nightmares about the guy being trapped in the Hell in the Cell with him, and I couldn't get out,
I don't think he could do the stuff he did either. It was pretty dark.
Oh, 100%. But like, I mean, like some of the best storylines, like him versus Stone Cold and part of the corporation with Vince McMahon and stuff like that. And then in the early 2000s, going into a motorbike with Limp Bizkit singing.
Yeah, that was weird.
Keep rolling and stuff.
The Brothers of Destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brothers of Destruction. Made Buried Alive match, made the Hell in the Cell match, made the Casket match. I mean, the guy brought a lot to the table, and as the years have gone on, he just continued to evolve and change his style, which I think worked in his favor. I mean, obviously towards the end of his career, I think he should have retired long before.
I totally agree.
I feel
it definitely would have been easier on his body.
Well, he had one match a year. He only wrestled, right? Like one match, maybe.
Near enough, yeah.
And that was it.
I felt like he was still really good around maybe 2008-9 time when he rivaled with Kurt Angle and Batista through like the kind of series. Yeah. And I felt like he should have either gone out at a WrestleMania, had no streak broken, or when he lost to Brock Lesnar, because at that point he was in bad shape, just quits.
I agree.
But like now, like he came back more and more years later, and he had that bloody like 6-minute match with John Cena, and I was like, John Cena's in like a prime still.
Yeah, that was weird.
Like he like buried him like a jobber, and I was like,
that's
stupid booking. I mean, I'm glad that he's retired now, as such. But I mean, he's still an entertaining wrestler. He's still done a lot through the day. like had the hardcore title against Jeff Hardy. You know, I always remember that match. And yeah, he's just one of the best wrestlers you'll ever get. But I think just entertainment factor wise, it was always entertaining. You know, so yeah, Undertaker is number 5.
Oh, great pick. I think
nice.
Probably the best. I don't know what to say. Best character created, best gimmick ever.
Easily, I would think so too. Yeah.
And he kept it his whole career basically. And he was so like he would not talk about the business. I think it felt like he was really old school in that way. Like, you know, he really wanted to keep the character and didn't want to talk behind the scenes until he retired. Then he kind of started talking about behind the scenes, I think, after he retired. So I mean, but yeah, such a great character. Of course, I remember back in the 90s, he had like more purplish color.
Yeah. He had gray gloves at one time. He had the gray gloves. Yeah, that was cool.
And then he really, when he started getting more dark, he definitely changed. It was all black more and dark. And I'm not real crazy about the biker days. Like that was kind of weird, but
I like it because the last ride. I like it was like the last ride, and he'd pick him up and throw him down hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it when he went back to because it also probably one of the greatest entrances of all time as well. I mean, it's a little slow. I have to say though, I wish it was a little quicker because it would take him forever to get to the ring because he just walked real slowly. But the gong is so cool, and the smoke and
so definitely. Yeah, I think just one of the greatest wrestlers you can probably see. You know, one of the
longevity is so good.
Yeah,
like you said, that Brock Lesnar match that was one of the biggest shocks I've ever had in my life.
But I mean, I think like they did a documentary on it. I didn't watch it, but I think I saw little clips. But I think in that Lesnar match, I think he was in really bad shape at the time, but still agreed to do the match.
Yeah.
I think during the match he got like a concussion as well, or concussed at some point.
Yeah, he actually said that he couldn't even remember the match until he watched it back. Like that, he didn't remember it because that's how bad the concussion was during the match.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I always thought he should have retired with Shawn Michaels because him and Shawn Michaels had so many great matches. But that was cool seeing Brock Lesnar beating him. That was such a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taker never broke kayfabe. That's what I was thinking of saying.
Yeah, he did.
He
that's right.
Always stayed in character. Yeah. Until his Hall of Fame speech. I remember when they did a documentary with Bret Hart, right around the Montreal Screwjob time. Really great documentary. I'm forgetting now what it's called. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was it the one that's like 360 something days? It was about being on the road, or was that the one you were talking about?
I think so. And they kind of, and I think maybe they showcased it. Well, I'm getting mixed up. I remember Bret Hart being in it, and it was right around the Montreal Screwjob when he was like leaving WWE. And I remember Undertaker, his name is like Mike Callows or something. He told Bret he didn't want to be on camera because he didn't want to break character because he wanted to stay into the Undertaker character. He didn't want to, So I always thought that was kind of interesting about him. Like other people were fine breaking character and kind of talking behind the scenes, but Undertaker was like, no, I got to keep this character. It's so important. But anyways, great pick, Mike. Norin, you're number 5.
All right, bringing us into the top 5. We have spoken about him already, but you can't hate on Bret the Hitman Hart, man. You got to talk about him again. He's my number 5, and mainly because he was kind of that first wrestler that made me really appreciate the technicality, like Jason said, of wrestling, what it takes to keep your opponent safe, what it takes to make it look real, and to keep it entertaining for us as fans. You know what I mean? Because like I said, to a point when you become a certain age, it's somewhat fake, but they can get hurt. But Bret Hart's one of those guys that you just appreciate everything that he put into the game, you know what I mean, in wrestling and stuff, and really taking care of his opponents. You know, he prides himself on like no one he ever wrestled really got hurt with him ever, which is crazy for working that long and stuff like that. And he was such a fan of the kids and the people, you know, how he used to give his sunglasses to the kids when he came down. You know, if you were one of those kids, that was like getting the golden Willy Wonka ticket. Like, it was like, fuck yeah, dude, like, come on.
Exactly.
So yeah, and like I love his intro music, the guitar, like how it kicks in and like you hear the guitar and it's like dun, 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 like, you know, coming out with the Canadian flag. So he's just, yeah, Bret Hart stands the test of time, and you know, like I said, really made me appreciate wrestling in a new way.
Oh, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I always wonder how many glasses he gave out in his lifetime and how much money
how many you have to buy
in his lifetime.
that must have been crazy, like for real. Like it has to be hundreds and hundreds, like for real. I wonder how many kids out there still have them.
I wonder. That'd be cool to have. Oh my gosh. Rey Mysterio Jr. did like a similar thing. He would take like his mask off or something, I think. And right, or am I thinking that right?
He had like a piece, yeah. I think he had like a piece, or like you said, a piece of his outfit he would hand off to people, yeah.
Or something. I don't know. So I always loved it, when wrestlers do that. I mean, it's funny, wrestling, it's obviously you have the good guys and bad guys, because that's how you tell stories. You have to have a good guy to root for and a bad guy to root against.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was always for the baby faces, of course, I guess. So that was always my favorite. I'm always like rooting for the good guy. Yeah, it's always loved when they were, did stuff like that for the kids and all that. But yeah. Bret Hart, he was great. Number 5 for me is Y2J, the man of 1,001 holds, Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho.
I remember when I was watching him in WCW, he was really just a cruiserweight wrestler. And he was kind of the Lionheart, I think they called him at the beginning. And I thought he was a great villain wrestler as well. He was a great comedic. But he was he was one of the top ones, I thought, for WCW, but he never got a push for WCW because they just saw him as a cruiserweight. And then he came over to the WWE, and he had one of the great like entrances with the countdown, the millennial countdown, which was such a genius idea, because we all did that, counting down to the new 2000 millennial.
Right.
And he did the whole Y2J countdown, and then when it hit 0 right during Rock's right in the middle of Rock in the ring doing a promo, and him coming out, oh man, the crowd like went crazy, and he had a great back and forth with the Rock, and immediately became like one of the top mid-carders. I believe last I knew, he had the record for most IC titles. He had like 9 Intercontinental titles. I don't know if anybody's broken that record, but he was so good. Him and Eddie Guerrero and even Chris Benoit at the time. They all came together, it seemed like, and they all had like really great matches. Rob Van Dam. Sorry, Norin.
My son was trying to talk to me, so I'll be right back. Right quick.
Sorry. Chris Jericho. He's one of those guys. When I talk about my top 5, mostly it's like these are guys who are not only the best in-ring wrestlers, but I always love the best guys that do really great promos, best on-mic guys. And to me, Chris Jericho was one of the top on-mic guys. He was great on the mic, and it's so funny. I loved because he kind of came in as like this kind of comedic heel wrestler, and he was so good at it that he eventually got pushed as a babyface, I think, because the crowds just loved him, and I loved him too when I used to watch him. And he'd go at it with like The Rock and stuff like that. And so I was really happy when he got into the main event at the time in the early 2000s, maybe, I don't know. And he finally got to the top. I was like very happy for him because he was just one of the most, I'd say, charismatic wrestlers. I don't know. so fun to watch. Him and Rey Mysterio Jr. has some of the greatest matches I've ever seen. I mean, he's another guy who has great matches with everybody. But what I love about Chris Jericho is that he's changed his style. He's made so many changes, and they've all worked. And I don't know if I've seen another wrestler reinvent himself, I guess is the word I want to say, so many times. Because he went from that to then he left, he came back, and then he had the short haircut. And then he went from like the comedic heel to the comedic babyface to being a very dark character. He was very kind of evil when he came back, and he had the I'm the best in the world at what I do, and he totally changed his character, and it totally worked. And he maybe his most prolific time, because he won the WWE Championship a couple times during that period, and he had great matches with like Edge and Randy Orton, whatever, Batista, John Cena, all of them, and he had all these great matches, and then he left, and he came back. And then when he came back, and then he was wearing scarves all of a sudden, and he's kind of going for like celebrity, like rock star image or something. I don't know. And then he did the whole "you're on the list," and that took off really big. And I was like, wow, this guy's coming back, and he's still like able to come up with these great catchphrases like that. And I just love that him and Kevin Owen together were so great.
Yeah.
Kind of comedic bad guys, but it was so great. And then he leaves and goes to AEW, and he comes like their star. He's like the first AEW champion. And again, he kind of changed himself to just this, I guess, a villain, but he's like this rock star villain. Comes out with his rock music, and he's got this. I think he still has a scarf, maybe, but he's got a little bit of a belly now, like because he's kind of getting older. So he doesn't look as good as he used to, but he's still so good on the mic. Like I love hearing him talk, and I think it's because of his AEW run right now that makes him a top 5 for me. I think before he was a guy maybe in my top 10, but then I'm like, man, he's just still killing it in AEW.
Yeah.
And to me, so that's why, when I kind of put this list together, I was like, yeah, I think Chris Jericho is a top 5 guy because what he's doing now with AEW. So,
yeah, I think he's been a world champion everywhere he's went. He's had, and now that because AEW they bought Ring of Honor and they own them, so all their titles are involved with them. Right. He became Ring of Honor champion too. So yeah, I think he's held the title for every major promotion out there. Yeah,
and I'm sure I don't know if he's done New Japan, whatever. I'm sure he has.
I think, he's had amazing matches over there, too.
Yeah. So I read his biography, and like he went down to Mexico, and he wrestled in Mexico for a little while. He went to England and wrestled in England for a little while before he kind of came back to the States and made it in ECW, and then went from ECW to WCW. Then he bounced around. He's just so great in all the promotions he's done. But yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Still going.
I know. Still going.
He's got a good feud right now with who is it? He's been feuding with Daniel Bryan or Daniel Bryanson. He's been feuding with him right now. Yeah.
So good. Now we're down to our number 4 with you, Mike.
Yep.
Number 4, is a person that has been on Jason's list before. And that is Jeff Hardy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I had written down the Hardy. It was like Norin was saying about the tag team matches, the TLC matches they made and stuff. But yeah, Jeff Hardy, I remember that time, like around 2008, I think it was. All of a sudden, he got face paint on his face and became a heavyweight all of a sudden overnight. But I love that single titles run. I agree with you, Jason. I think if he didn't have like the alcohol and drug problems, whatever he had, I think he would have still been going on to continue to fight for the WWE Championship, like continuously.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. It's a shame. He's had all these opportunities in AEW because he wants to retire with his career, and so does Matt Hardy. And Matt said he wants to do it with one last run with Jeff, and as a tag team, like they were doing like independent matches as well. They were battling like Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, obviously different names now, but they were battling them in like different independent venues and stuff, and trying to just face the best tag teams around and then retire. But Jeff was caught drink driving again or something like that. So AEW, I think at the moment, are like giving him rehab or trying to help him get sorted, and he wants to do it. And I think he's going to ultimately retire, which I think he should.
Well, he's in his 40s now, so he's getting a little harder those moves that he used to do.
Yeah, I agree. But definitely an entertaining wrestler. Had some great, memorable matches. He always put his body on the line. Like he's always jumping off a ladder to a table or off the crowd or something crazy, So I can't really add much more. Jeff Hardy's number 4.
All right, I'm glad to see that.
Nice.
Great.
All right. Let's see. Number 4 for me is gonna be we brought him up to already, and that's gonna be The Undertaker. And for me, this was my grandpa's favorite. So growing up, and who he talked about the most was The Undertaker. And like as Jason and like Mike said, like out of gimmicks, he's lasted longer than anybody. And that moment when he lost to Brock Lesnar, like that broke me. Like Jason said, that broke me. Like I stopped watching wrestling for I think like 2 years after that because I just couldn't believe it. I was like, that's bullshit. I was like, no way. That's a freaking lie. I'm not going to even acknowledge that. Yeah. And I stopped watching wrestling for a long time after that. Oh, man. So that's how important that character is to me, is like, he's one of those guys. When I saw him retire, I got very emotional. You cry, you tear up because you're like, you don't want to see them go. If this was the perfect world, they would not age ever, and we would watch them wrestle forever. You know what I mean? But like said, sadly, like that moment when he retired, like, it hits you hard. But he had a really nice speech when he got put into the WWE Hall of Fame, and talked about Kane and all the people who were monumental in his career and stuff. So Undertaker, I think, highly deserves to be on this top 10 list for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, as a horror fan, I was thinking before, I was like, there's some good horror wrestlers out there. I was thinking like Undertaker would probably fit in there. Kane would fit in.
Yeah.
Remember there's this guy called like the Boogeyman or something?
Yeah.
And he used to put worms in his mouth or something.
Yeah, and then there was Papa Shango. Ultimate Warrior had a beef with this guy who did voodoo, and he would come by and like curse Ultimate Warrior during the match and stuff.
That's right. Yeah, so I was thinking, I bet there's some good horror movie wrestlers there for you, Norin. Even Kane, he did some horror movies. I don't know if you've seen those.
Oh yeah, See No Evil. He did 2 of them actually. Like they're really good.
Are they? Yeah. So he definitely went the horror route, but yeah.
He's actually now I think he's a mayor in Tennessee.
Yeah, he's a mayor,
right? Yeah, he's a mayor now. He has the Kane mask like on his desk and shit.
It's great. Yeah, and he's like almost 7 foot tall. Like he's got to be one of the biggest mayors out there.
Oh, definitely.
I wouldn't want to mess with that mayor. Yeah.
Nah.
But I think he's got like a wife and big family and everything.
He looks like a big teddy bear. I bet you he's like one of the nicest people in the world.
Big suit, and you're just like, what? I never thought.
I can't remember what year it was now. I'd like to say it's in the last 10 years, I'd say, though. I've met Kane in person.
Really?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So what happened was in Newcastle, like not too far where I live, WWE once a year usually do like a live event there. And it was usually always after WrestleMania. They'd always do like a tour after WrestleMania. And they used to always do a signing at like maybe like one of our video game shops or a toy shop or something like that. And at the time, I got to meet him and Daniel Bryan because they were part of Team Hell No.
Yeah, Hell No.
Yeah.
So I got to meet both then, and Daniel Bryan's one of the nicest guys you'll meet, though.
Nice.
Kane was pretty cool as well. I'm gonna have to do it. I'll do a video on my channel at some point, but I've got like 2 wrestling programs signed. Okay. I've shared this on the channel, but I've met Batista. I've met Edge. I've met Edge and Lita.
Okay. Nice.
Lita's hot as well.
Oh yeah, she's a goddess.
Well, woo! Oh man, I met loads. I've met Kevin Nash. X-Pac, Scott Hall.
Oh, the NWO.
Oh, rest in peace, Scott Hall.
Right. But I'll share that for another time. I just wanted to add that to my career a few years ago.
I can't imagine, like, you and Daniel Bryan are probably similar heights, I would guess, because he's kind of small.
Pretty much, yeah. I think he's a little bit taller.
Isn't Kane just huge, or?
Oh, he's massive. His hands like a shovel.
Him and Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash is huge. I can't imagine.
Oh man, Kevin Nash tall. Scott Hall was tall as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like it's like
dwarfed you. Wow, that is so cool. I've never met any wrestlers personally. I don't know about you, Norin.
No, I think if any, it was when I was too young, because my grandpa did take me to wrestling events when they came out here when I was little, but I was like, I'd have to look at pictures to remember kind of that old.
Any famous wrestlers from New Mexico?
As far as I know, not too many that I know of from New Mexico. I know Mick Foley went Mankind. They used to say he was booked out of TRC, which is Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
Right, yeah.
So they used to say that as part of his story, but that's not where he's from, though.
You're right, yeah. Am I number 4? I can't remember where we are.
Yeah, we're at number 4 now. Yeah.
Okay. My number 4 is the Texas Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I was trying to think of his other names. I just think of Texas Rattlesnake. I think he was
the ringmaster. He was the ringmaster.
I want to say he was like the toughest SOB or something like that they used to call him, but
yeah.
Stone Cold, when I first started watching wrestling, or in 97, when I really kind of started watching Raw, Stone Cold was coming off of a neck injury, and I just remember Vince McMahon was in the ring and Stone Cold's music hit and the crowd was going like crazy, and he came in and gave this great promo against Vince McMahon and then gave him a Stone Cold Stunner to end it, and I was like, what? Like, he just Stone Cold stunned the boss. Like, that really made a big impression on me. Like, I was like, you can do that? You can beat up the boss? But that was so cool, and the crowd was so into it, and I was like hooked on him. I was like, man. And that was right before he had his match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, of course. And once he won the title, man, he had one of the best runs I thought I've ever seen in wrestling. I mean, his merch was everywhere. Everybody had Stone Cold Steve Austin shirts, and Austin 316 was so big at the time. And I mean, he was just huge. You got big pops with the crowds. And again, it's funny. Like, I mean, he was a pretty good wrestler. I don't know if he's one of my favorite like in-ring wrestlers, but he was one of the best on the mic guys. And he had such a great attitude. I just love the whole Stone Cold, you don't mess with him. He doesn't, I don't know what's the word. He just doesn't care. He goes after everybody, and
he's got such like a blasé attitude. It just goes off his shoulders. Like,
yeah, he just doesn't give a care. I want to say the F word, but I'm not going to say the F word, but he just doesn't give, what. And he just skyrocketed, and I feel like he was almost unbeatable. There was after 2 or 3 years where I feel like nobody could beat this guy. And the only time he would lose is Vince McMahon would screw him out of the title or something. And then he'd come back at WrestleMania, and he had 2 really great matches with The Rock, I thought, at WrestleMania to win back the title. And they had I love him and The Rock were so good together. Him and Triple H, Mankind, Undertaker, Kane. Oh man, they had so many great matches at the day. And there's just something about Stone Cold and how he was kind of somewhat simple looking. I mean, he just had black trunks. He had a bald head, goatee. Not really anything flashy, but I loved when the Stone Cold Stunner to me was like the greatest move ever. Like, because you could hit it on anybody. It didn't matter how big you were. He'd hit you with the Stone Cold Stunner. And we used to love doing that to each other at school. We'd give each other the Stone Cold Stunner in the hallway. And it was such a fun move to do. And you could surprise somebody pretty easily because you just had to like pretend like you're kicking them in the stomach. And once they once they bent over, you just grab them. And anyway, so it was a really fun move. And it used to be nobody ever kicked out. It felt like nobody kicked out of the stunner. I mean, back in the day, like I said, once you get hit with the stunner, you're gone. Like, but I loved how he and then after, and there's something about like how he'd come to the ring, and he would beers get thrown, and he'd be chugging down beers, and then he would throw a beer to somebody, and they would be drinking it, and then he'd give them the Stone Cold Stunner for no reason. That's what he does. And I love that, how he just, even if he was a good guy, like he had no beef with this guy, but he would just give him the Stone Cold Stunner because he was in the same ring. He's like, here's a beer, and then bam. And it's like, oh, I loved it. And I want to say he's the only guy, I think, that has given his finisher move to a future president. Because at WrestleMania, he gave Donald Trump the Stone Cold Stunner.
That's true.
I don't think anybody's ever given a future president.
No.
So that's pretty distinctive. I mean, he's so cool that he Stone Cold stunned the president. I think that's so cool. Because he didn't care who you were. He if you're the Queen of England, he'd give you the Stone Cold Stunner. He just didn't care. No offense, Mike. That was a bad reference, but just to say, if you were the Pope, I mean, he'd give you the Stone Cold Stunner. Didn't matter who you were. It's
true.
Anyways, but yeah, just that era, the Attitude Era, that to me, that was Stone Cold. He was like the face of that whole era, and just so fun to watch. Anyway, so yeah, to me, I had to put him here at number 4 on my list.
Great pick.
All right, you got number 3 for you, Mike.
Top 3.
Number 3 is Stone Cold.
Stone Cold.
Literally, I can't really add much more to what Jason said. Yeah, one of the greats. Had some of the best storylines back in that time, like the time when he got ran over by the car, and you're wondering who the hell ran him over in the car.
For real?
Yeah.
Really got to the bottom of that, or
it's such a simple storyline, but it kept you guessing, me like, well, who ran him over? You know, that went on for weeks, and you're wondering. Like the beer, or like the beer truck, and like the ring when he's
that was so good.
And yeah, like, you know, just the stunner, like as you said, Jason, you know, like he would stun anyone that were done, that out for the count. He stunned everyone in his wake. The beer, he would chug the beer before matches, after a promo. It'd have like a certain guy who would always chug the beer. No one else. It's one guy.
Oh, really?
Beers. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he had like a special cooler guy, and he would just. That guy was like on money. He would just
so many beers. He gets so many beers thrown.
Right. So yeah, I can't really add much more else what you said, Jason. So yeah, Stone Cold 3.
Very solid. Very solid.
Tell me, you must have given Joe the Stone Cold Stunner at some point, right?
Yeah, or he probably give it. I know Joe used to go around school and give his classmates stunners. That's the stories he's told me.
I can see it.
All right. So top 3. My number 3. We have spoken about him already, but you cannot, like I said, have a top 10 without having the great Mick Foley on here. Mankind. My favorite persona of his, though, is Cactus Jack. That's my favorite of his because that's the most hardcore kind of, you know. Yeah. So what I loved about him was just, like you said, he sacrificed his body like to entertain us. Like this guy, I've seen him do things where I'm like, he should be dead. Like that. I'm like, a normal person would be straight up dead. And like you said, he'd get up and he'd go back to the match. Like even that match where he got thrown off the Hell in a Cell, he had to interrupt later that night. The Stone Cold WWE match, he had to go interrupt the match, and they didn't even know if he would be there or be able to because of what he went through. And he still made the run and didn't miss his mark at all. So that's why I love. Plus, he's been to ACW. He wrestled with WCW for a period.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, came to WWE and was the only guy that I know of who can really pull off 3 gimmicks at the same time.
Yeah.
like they did that Titantron thing where it'd be like like Mankind arguing with Dude Love, and like you're like, what you do? But he was so good at mirroring these characters that you just loved it.
Yeah. He's so good at character development, I guess I would say. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why he ended up becoming. I think he did writing for a while during the kind of John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton era. He was doing a lot of the writing for them at that time, I think.
That
makes sense.
Because he was great when he was like just the commissioner or whatever. He was.
Yep.
He was so good. Even when he wasn't wrestling, he was so good. To me, but yeah, I wonder if he can even walk very good nowadays. I feel like he's got a lot.
I know I saw him on Stone Cold Steve Austin has this show where he has old wrestlers on and like they talk the Cold Ones sessions and stuff. And he has his own beard oil now. He's writing books now, Mick Foley. So I think he's just, enjoying his success, being retired and stuff. I think he said he still has problems like remembering things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I've heard that. Yeah. He took such a pounding. I just can't imagine. With a big body too. He took a pounding and he was a big body, so that's got to be hard. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to see him on that list. He's definitely one of my favorites. Just the Attitude Era is so good, like you said, with those Stone Cold and Mankind and all those guys. Oh yeah, I see Joe said something here like, I would love to get Stunners out.
I'm giving Stunners out.
I can see that. Yeah, that was a fun move. I have to say, it's probably my favorite. Number 3 for me, I feel like I might get hated for putting this guy at number 3 because I feel like he gets a lot of hate. I gotta put him here. It's John Cena. And I feel like he was really popular at the beginning of I don't know, somewhere in the 2000s era when he kind of came about. And when he got to the main, when he finally got into the main event or whatever, I mean, he took off big time. And he was one of those guys that felt like no one can beat him. I feel like he held on the title for a long time. And because he was so popular, he was super popular for a while. And then there came a part where everybody kind of started hating him, I felt like, and I almost felt embarrassed to say I'm a John Cena fan because I used to have the John Cena shirt, and I would go to the wrestling shows with my John Cena shirt, and then the crowd was like, Cena sucks, and I'd be like, what? I thought he was good, and I was like, oh, I guess somewhere in there, it seemed like the crowd kind of turned against him. But I don't know. I still was a big fan of his. He had such a great look. I mean, the guy was his feats of strength are some of the best I've ever seen. I remember the first time seeing him put the Big Show on his shoulders and give him the attitude adjustment, whatever. I was like, dang, I was like, you can do that? Like, I didn't think anybody could put the Big Show on his shoulders like that. And him do it like he did. I mean, I've seen him do it against the Great Khali. He did against Viscera, which was insane because Viscera was so huge. I think he said Viscera was like putting a waterbed on your shoulders. I think he said that was the hardest one or something.
Viscera was a big guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Only tall, but he was just so fat. He was just,
right.
Just massive. Yeah, he could put anybody on his shoulders. That was just absolutely crazy. I mean, his strength, it was just amazing. And I did love his look overall. He had kind of I didn't like his rap era. That was kind of like a little cringy when he used to do all the rapping and he wore the jeans. When he kind of did away with that and he kind of just had the military style haircut and the shorts and everything. And man, he just looked so good in the ring. And he's really good on the mic guy, does really great promos, had a good sense of humor, I thought. And I've heard people say he's not that good of an in-ring wrestler, but I always enjoyed him. And I thought, and he just seemed like he headlined just about every WrestleMania. He went up against Triple H, against Shawn Michaels, against Edge and Big Show, against Batista, I think, one time. And then his 2 against The Rock is still some of my favorite matches. The 2 that he did against him, I thought they put on a really good WrestleMania match 2 years in a row. And he was like the face of the company, I feel like, for almost a decade. He was the biggest name. he's another guy. I think he's won 16 heavyweight titles. I don't think anybody's won more than he has, just on heavyweight titles.
Nice. He's tied with Ric Flair.
Yeah, tied with Ric Flair, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's definitely been, very rewarded over the years. And I mean, so good. He's one of those guys that just really went from wrestling to acting because he just was so natural at it, I guess. And he's so good on the mic, and he's kind of started to become, I think, a pretty good actor now. I mean, not good actor, but an entertaining actor, like in the Suicide Squad and all that, and the Peacemaker. But yeah, to me, his run in the 2000s era, I forget exactly what time period now, but that was one of the best runs I've seen out of a wrestler. I thought so. I had to put him up here. I think he's one of the greats. I don't know if that's a I don't know if that's a like I said, that's a bad opinion or what, but
no, I don't think so.
But I don't know. Like I said, he's been very rewarded. Has some great WrestleMania matches. Yeah, I had to put him up there. Number 3 for me, John Cena.
Yeah, sweet man. Yeah, he's a good wrestler. I like him now when he comes back every now and then. I think for me personally, I'm not taking up too much time. I think for me personally, Jason's a great pick, and he's done a lot for the business, and like 16 titles is impressive.
Yeah.
I think at that time when he dropped the kind of fugger and he kind of went for the spinning title and stuff.
Yeah.
I think what turned a lot of people off when chanting Cena sucks and stuff was it was on all the time. Like he dropped the title and he's got the title 2 months later. Oh, he's dropped it again. Yeah. He's got it later. It was like non-stop Cena. And I felt like Roman Reigns was like also like that for the longest time. They were pushing him constantly until he turned heel in this bloodline stuff. And like now I'm like, oh, I like the guy now, But before then I was like, I can't stand him, It's like it's just when you get shoved too much,
Yeah, and he's a guy that I think he never went heel. He really was always a babyface wrestler, and I think maybe he gets criticized because he never really changed his character too much. Like some of the other ones. But him and Edge had some really, I just now thinking, I loved some of him and Edge's matches. Him and Randy Orton were so good together, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, going to number 2, Mike.
Yep. The runner-up.
Right. So I'm doing it a little bit differently for myself because my number 2 and number 1 is a mix between my favorite kind of back then and one of them's my favorite kind of like present day. So I was like, I can't really choose a favorite between them. So I'm just going to mention a name here and then I'll mention another name, but these switch quite often. Okay. So my favorite current wrestler right now is The Miz.
The Miz?
The Miz. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
I'll probably get a lot of flack for that. I know Joe hates The Miz. He doesn't like it. But I love him. Yeah, I think he's like, he started in reality TV, MTV, and you think this guy's a wrestler, like what? Yeah. But like I know throughout the years, like what you guys were saying about Bret Hart being like a safe technical wrestler and stuff as well. Like The Miz is also a very safe wrestler. I think in 11 years or 80, however long he's been in WWE, he's had 1 injury in that time, and so a safe wrestler, like he's really developed his skills over the years. He's had like his title and Continental titles, tag teams with like John Morrison, like with different wrestlers, and then the fact he won the Money in the Bank and finally got the world title, and I was over the moon. And I just remember that like that angry girl in the crowd, that angry. that was just so funny, But yeah, he won the world title. I was over the moon when he won the title. I was like, this guy from MTV is the world champion, like
that was something, yeah.
Big story. Yeah. So yeah, I think just overall, like even till today, like he still always has an entertaining storyline. Like even if it's the most stupidest thing, he'll do it and he pulls it off where it's funny. Like recently there's been a storyline where they're saying that he has gigantic balls. And I'm like this is a storyline. And then Maria's wife carrying literally a purse around of literally 2 balls. like literally 2 balls to go with the storyline, and I'm like, this is ridiculous, but it's so funny. So yeah, I think he's a highly entertaining guy. Maybe not the best in the ring or anything, but I think just entertainment wise, promo wise, and just what he's achieved overall. Yeah, my favorite wrestler currently today.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
That's not a bad pick. To me, he's one of the top on mic guys, maybe the best right now. One of the best heel wrestlers too. He's really good at being a heel.
Yeah.
He'd be babyface every once in a while, but he was never very good at the babyface stuff. But heel wise, man, you love to hate him. He's a guy that you're like, I love to hate this guy. He always came off as a big douchebag or something. I don't know. It's just
right. He does, yeah. But I'll root for him.
But his on mic skills are so good, and his in ring ability has gotten better, I think, than when he first started. And he's had some good matches. But yeah. So yeah, I like that. That's not a bad pick. It's not one I would have picked, but I like it.
I told you I had some surprises.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Norin, number
2. All right. So my number 2 is gonna be Sting. Man, the legend, the icon, man, and reason he's up here is because he's straight an icon. His career started in 1985. He's still wrestling today. Presently, he's worked for NWA, WWE, TNA, AEW, and WCW. So he's been all around, you know what I mean? Had, his heyday when he was in the Blade Runners with Ultimate Warrior, being a youngin'. But I think Sting, just the longevity of his career, and that he's really embodied his character, but he lives it to a fashion that he's loyal. You know what I mean? He's like, the fans love him, and all that kind of stuff because he just stays true to that character. And, like they said, reinventing him when he became the Crow character and was feuding with NWO and stuff, even though him and Hulk didn't have the greatest match of all time.
Yeah.
It was still cool because you wanted Sting to win, they just kind of screwed it up a little bit, but that might be part of Hulk Hogan's fault, because I've heard Hulk Hogan's one of those guys that he kind of cheats dudes out of being successful sometimes. But also what I love about Sting is that, like I said, he's just one of those, when you have him and you book him and you're like, oh, you're part of my group now, he's going to represent your crew. He's going to represent AEW, WCW, whatever brand he's working for. And he's going to really represent that brand. Like right now, he's teaming up with Darby Allin in AEW, and they do a lot of stuff, and he's passing a lot of that stuff down to him. So I think that's fabulous. So I think Sting highly deserves my number 2 spot as the runner-up to my favorite.
Sweet.
So glad to see that. He's like in his 60s now, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, he's up there and he's still out there. I can't believe it.
And he still looks good too. He's like fit. He's got, muscles. I think he just keeps the right tone. He didn't try to be too buff anymore. He kind of slimmed down more,
Yeah.
And he had a bad injury with WWE, and I thought he retired for good. So I was kind of surprised he came back. But yeah, he's so good.
Yeah.
All right, so it's my number 2.
Yep.
This is another one. I feel like, I don't know if it'd get flack. I feel like he was big, but now he's not as big. But I still have to go with one of my childhood favorites, and that's Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan, the Hollywood Hogan. Which one do you like best, Hulk Hogan or Hollywood?
Oh, the Hulk Hogan back in the 80s and early 90s.
That was your favorite?
Going back and watching those WrestleManias, and all that. And when I was a kid, I feel like when I was a kid, I remember I knew who Hulk Hogan was. Like, I don't know how I knew, but it's like everybody, he was so big at the time. He was the biggest wrestler, I think, in the business. And to me, when I was a kid, he was like the first one I was a huge fan of, was Hulk Hogan. In fact, there was a Hulk Hogan cartoon that I used to watch as a kid. I don't know if you remember that. But yeah, I doubt it was very long or did very well. But I remember being a kid and watching like these Hulk Hogan cartoons with all these other wrestlers, and anyways, and Hulk Hogan was the good guy, of course. And But yeah, and I remember the first time watching WrestleMania 3 when he fought Andre the Giant, and he body slammed Andre the Giant. Like, that blew my mind. Like, that was one of the greatest moments, I thought, in wrestling. Like, I remember I was kind of young. I remember I watched that match, and I was like, or maybe not the match, but I watched that moment, and I was like, what? How do you slam a guy that big? And so it made Hulk Hogan was just a larger than life character for me as a kid. And so this is kind of a nostalgia pick, I think, because I feel like he gets a lot of flack. Like, he wasn't the best in-ring wrestler. He was, but he was great at working the crowd. I think the best thing was he knew how to work a crowd and get the crowd into a match. And he does this, he did his poses and let me tell you something about brother. He had such a great promo, his voice and everything, and Hulkamania runs wild on you. Like, he's so dramatic and so out there. I loved his promos. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and he's such a good babyface wrestler at the time. And he had kind of interesting look with the the yellow trunks and the blonde hair, and he was always going bald, but somehow had long hair at the same time, it seemed like. I don't know how he did that, but he was also, but he's so jacked too. I mean, he was just huge, the 23-inch pythons. And looking back, I people give him flack, but I still love watching him wrestle Ultimate Warrior. I really like that match at WrestleMania. I like him and Randy Savage. I think WrestleMania 5 or so 4. I can't remember. So I go back and I watch those on YouTube, and I still enjoy watching him wrestle because he was so huge, man. When he came out, the crowd went crazy. I mean, to me, wrestling was Hulk Hogan. I mean, wrestling would not be what it is today without Hulk Hogan. When he got the title and kind of came, this Hulkamania kind of swept over. He went like 3 years. No one beat him. There was like a 3-year span where like nobody could beat this guy. And he was headlining every WrestleMania. And yeah, I don't know. So this might be more of part of my childhood nostalgia. But I feel like he deserves a 2 pick for me anyway. So I put Hulk Hogan there.
That's a good pick. Well, one thing I will say though is with Hulk Hogan, Jason, that's a good pick because I think one of the best crowd reactions I've ever heard in any wrestling match is when he faced The Rock at WrestleMania. Yes. That crowd was nuts. I rewatched that not too long ago actually, and I was like, wow. Like, still now I was getting chills from watching that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments, yeah.
And that was putting over The Rock, but like still massive moment. Or the Hulkamania when his team was Shawn Michaels and stuff, and he was going against Brock Lesnar for the championship. Yeah, good pick.
All right, getting down to our number ones now.
The top dogs.
Who do you think who's your favorite wrestler, Mike?
Yeah, so again, this is a bit of an answer I was saying before about The Miz is kind of my favorite wrestler, but I'm going back to like my favorite wrestler kind of like back then. So I can't choose between the two because it's 2 different eras. So I don't think it's fair to choose. The Rock. This guy, highly entertaining guy, like grew up with him, like the Rock and Sock, him versus Mankind match. Every time he's always evolved his style, he's changed style, but he still is entertaining. Delivers probably the best promos you're going to hear from a wrestler. Do a serious promo, how to do a funny one. Like, one I love is back in the day when he was with like Jonathan Coachman backstage in the back area. And then he kicks him in the ass and Jonathan Coachman, or like imitating Rikishi or whatever. Just such an entertaining guy and the best guy ever called a Stone Cold Stunner as well.
Yes, absolutely,
without a doubt.
He sold that like $1 million.
He would do backflips to sell that stunner. Yeah. And I know Stone Cold has said multiple times on record that he tried to keep us laughing every time it happened, you know, because they would personally talk backstage and The Rock would be like, I'm going to oversell this tonight. I'm going to try to do double flips and stuff. And, you know, so I was keeping a pace during the match when The Rock's just going backwards constantly, you know. So you get to entertaining guy, great match with John Cena. Back in WrestleMania. The first match is definitely better than the second one. Same with The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. I preferred the first one.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, great match even still with John Cena. I think the plan is maybe for him to come back at some point to versus Roman Reigns because of this whole head of the table bloodline kind of thing.
Related.
The Rock's the kind of head honcho as such. But yeah, just, you know, I can't really say much more. Just entertaining guy. Huge one. The biggest thing to come out of wrestling in terms of an acting career.
Biggest.
Even if you don't like his movies and it's the same character in every movie, pretty much he's still a big cast, and you know he's always in some movie. You know,
he does 5 movies a year at least.
Right, and a guy who used to wrestle in trunks to one of the biggest Hollywood actors. You know, goes to say something. Yeah, had to choose The Rock.
Sweet, awesome pick, great
Love
one.
it. For me, I always used to just love when he sold a stunner. That's my.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
Vince McMahon was the worst at selling the stunner.
100%.
He would just go straight down. It was weird, and I was like, "You're supposed to, you're supposed to spring back." Like he just,
Yeah, I remember when Vince got all like jacked. He started getting jacked, and then he won the championship, and he started wrestling and stuff.
Yeah,
no, he was terrible.
Yeah.
Number one.
All right, so my number one is the Texas Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the boy, the man. He's just one for me. Like said, how Jason said, you gravitated towards him, man. You could not hate this guy. I don't think I've ever met anyone in my life that said, "Oh, I hate Stone Cold. I don't like Stone Cold." Like, no, you had to like this dude because he represented everything you wanted to be as a teenager. You know what I mean? You wanted to rebel against the authority, but you wanted to be your own thing. You know what I mean? And he represented all of that stuff. Probably one of my favorite moments with him was when he wrestled Bret Hart in a submission match.
Yeah.
And that's not his thing. Like Stone Cold does not do submissions. That's not his thing. So when you kind of knew Bret Hart was going to win right away, but the match is so great. It's the first time I've ever seen, I remember seeing someone pass out from a submission. Like he's doing the sharpshooter, Bret Hart, and Stone Cold's face is covered in blood. And then he passes out. The ref's like, no, he's done. He's done. I was like, holy shit. Like he didn't want to give up. Like, you're like, what the So that's why I just love so many moments. Booker T, him and Booker T fighting in a supermarket. Like, oh my God, like they caused like $3,000 worth of damage to a supermarket and they got away with it. You know? So yeah, Stone Cold's definitely like the one, like you said, just his merch was everywhere. He was the most popular guy. And even though, like you said, he only had like maybe 10 moves. He only maybe did 10 same moves, but he made it work his whole career.
Yeah.
So he deserves, and he's, you know, my number one top dog, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, great pick.
Great pick.
You had Stone Cold in yours too, didn't you, Mike?
Yeah, number 3.
So all three of us had him in our top 5. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I think that's the only one. The same. Yeah. Oh, great pick. For me, number 1 is the great one, The Rock. So I agree with you, Mike.
Awesome.
Putting lists together, he's definitely number 1. It's funny because him and Stone Cold kind of came during the same era. And it was always like, man, those are 2 of the top wrestlers of all time coming together at the same time. 1 and 2 for me, like during that time period. Everything he said, The Rock, to me, was, when I say the best wrestler, like his in-ring ability was so good because he's 6'5", pretty strong guy, but he moves so well in the ring. I mean, his athleticism and the way he moved. And then he's the best on mic guy. I think he's the best at doing promos, like you said, Mike. He's absolutely my favorite. He was so funny, the way he'd go off on people, like I like to turn that sideways and stick it up your, he'd do that. Come back to the SmackDown hotel. He'd start singing. He would. He invented the word SmackDown. Like, I don't think anybody ever said SmackDown, and then it became a word all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, when the games came out, he was on the cover of every game. I think he was on the cover of every SmackDown game.
Yeah, they made a whole SmackDown show for it because of what he said. That was kind of interesting. Him and Mankind are so funny together. They did the "Here's Your Life" with The Rock, and it was like the longest. It was like 30 minutes or something. It was like the longest promo, whatever they've ever done with him and Mankind. I loved how he had some of the great, someone would start talking and then you go, what's your name? And then they go, oh, it doesn't matter what your name is. Like, oh, everybody knew he was going to do it, but everybody fell right into it. I loved it because I was like, oh, that's so great. He does it so perfectly. And the Rock's millions and millions of fans, whatever, has come back. And then he would say your town and you go crazy. He's so good on the mic. Absolutely the best. The best. No one's gotten into acting like he has. I mean, Hulk Hogan's tried. Not real great, but he's done some. Roddy Piper's done some. Batista has done pretty good now, I would say.
He's doing good. Yeah, Batista's really hitting the mark lately.
Yeah, he is. And then John Cena's done pretty good, but The Rock is head and shoulders above everybody. He's the biggest name in Hollywood, I would say. He was like, I know last time I remember he was like the highest paid actor in Hollywood or something. I mean, everybody loves The Rock. He's just so good at everything he does. And he's gotten older and he's more jacked somehow now. He's like probably, I don't know if he's in 50s now or something, but someone shouldn't look like that in their 50s. I don't know. It's just insane, the kind of work he puts in.
I know that's what bothers me about watching wrestling. Sometimes I'm like, damn, dude, it feels like they're so old and they're so fit still. I'm like, damn, I need to start doing something, man. Right. Running, walking.
But like, I love The Rock. He does that spring forward. What do you call it? This
where the step up. Oh, when he does the step up thing or the kick up.
Back, and then he would like. Oh man, like that was so great when he would do that. Like he did that against John Cena. When John Cena was doing the 5-knuckle shuffle, and then I love when he does it and then gives you the rock bottom, and then the people's elbow. That was so huge. It's such a silly move, but man, I loved it when he would get out there, take off his thing, and run. I mean, it's just an elbow, but it was so cool the way he did it. But yeah, he was to me. There's so many that like Stone Cold totally deserves to be up there, but yeah, The Rock is number one for me. So
that's a good pick. It's okay, man. It's a good pick.
I was hoping Norin would go with The Rock and we'd have a three-peat here almost, but that's okay.
Close enough.
Close enough. Yeah. So that's our top 10. Let's see. Mamu says, when I met Batista, it must have been a bad day. It was a meet and greet, and he didn't even look his fans in the eyes. So. I don't know much about his personally. The best wrestler to meet has to be Sheamus. He treats you like family. I like Sheamus a lot. He's a good one.
He's cool, yeah. I've grown to like him. When he first came out, he was one of those guys that I just hated. But as time grew on, I grow on to him,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, same.
Just as Cactus Jack was my favorite gimmick of his. I can see that. The bang bang, like that was so great.
I had
was pretty weak in that ring. I would agree. He wasn't the strongest, but man, he was entertaining. Like most of my wrestlers, I feel like came out of that Attitude Era, and I think that's the same way with you guys, right?
Yeah, the majority of them, yeah.
To me, that was just the best era of wrestling. I don't know. And again, maybe that's just because I was a kid at the time.
I think I only had two. Yeah, I only had like two from the kind of golden era before them. Sting and Ultimate Warrior, the only ones that kind of started before that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my most recent one, I suppose, would be like, I mean, John Cena and Hardy, maybe more of the recent ones, but yeah.
See, the one I had honorable mentions.
Yeah.
My most recent one was Kevin Owens. I really like the stuff he does because he's started in Japan, started Canada wrestling, and he really, like you said, hit that era of NXT when it was really big, when you wanted to watch NXT because you're like, damn, these guys are going to make it big,
Very true. Yeah, did you have any honorable mentions, Mike?
I didn't write any down, no, but I think it's just there's like a lot of entertaining guys. We didn't mention like Shawn Michaels, who's always entertaining. Or
we didn't mention Shawn Michaels, and he's number one on most lists that I've seen.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy. I just never liked his attitude he kind of brought somewhat, but I know why he's so popular is because he really knew how to make a crowd pop. He knew how to make everybody exciting. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. Oh yeah. When he was at top, he was one of the best. I think when he beat Bret Hart at the WrestleMania.
Oh yeah.
Hour-long Iron Man match. Yeah, he was definitely put him at the top for a little bit there. Usually it's Shawn Michaels and like Undertaker are usually number one, number two, from what I see normally. So, like I put Triple H on my list. I hate not putting him up there. To me, he's one of the best. Another one that came out of the Attitude Era, and very good longevity as well. And now is kind of running the company, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, this was kind of cool. Yeah, like, and it's cool. He married Stephanie. They kept the relationship for a really long time. So,
yeah. I did put Shawn Michaels on my honorable mentions. Yeah, he definitely deserves to be in there. I put Seth Rollins on there. Seth Rollins is probably my favorite wrestler today. Came very close to putting him in my top 10. Didn't quite get him in there. I really liked Rod Van Dam back in the day, man. He was so entertaining.
Oh, yeah. RVD, baby.
Those kicks and throwing the chair and kicking in the face, like that was so innovative. He had so many great moves. As an in-ring competitor, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody more entertaining than Rob Van Dam. What he did. And then I also put Macho Man Randy Savage in there because absolutely that's more of, I mean, he was in WCW when I kind of was watching, but his heyday back with Hulk Hogan, I thought was so good. And I loved his promos, oh yeah,
oh yeah, and he did the snap into a Slim Jim, like he did the Slim Jim commercials.
Yeah, those are all over the place. And like he was in a Spider-Man. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
he was in the first one. Yep.
Like
Bonesaw, right? He was Bonesaw.
Yeah, Bonesaw. But I loved his voice. It was so good. Him and Elizabeth and I'm the cream of the crop. And he would always, I don't know. I just loved it. But yeah. So yeah, that's my honorable mentions. All right, so we're getting close to 3 hours. So I suppose it's time to I could talk for a long time about this.
Oh yeah.
It was definitely one of my obsessions as a kid. That's why I wanted to do a top 10 wrestlers with you two guys. I knew you guys were kind of big on it as well.
So thank you so much, Jason, for inviting us over. It was awesome.
Thanks. So much appreciate you guys coming on and talking wrestling with me, and hopefully that was entertaining for anybody watching. That I know some people probably aren't into wrestling that are on my channel, but hopefully I'm sure there's some crossover there.
We'll have to get the women's top 10 as well.
Yeah, we can do a top 10 women's at some point. That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Oh yeah, I would definitely be down. I got a few girls that I would love to talk about.
Okay, definitely, we should do that sometime. But yeah, so I don't know, Mike, do you want to talk about what's going on in your channel before we go?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me, man, on this live stream. Been a blast. Been just a trip down nostalgia lane for a lot of it. That's been awesome. So know me. My name's Mike. Channel's called Did You See That? Yeah, recently on the channel, I did a review today on the main one, which is David Hasselhoff's
Sweet.
unauthorized parody of The Grinch as such. So we've got that. This week, I am going to be dropping The Nightmare Before Christmas review as part of my Christmas special. I'll be on Patreon first, and then it'll be on the channel. And I think besides that, the only other video I've got coming up is what's coming up on the channel in 2023, which is like a 16-minute video. At first time I've ever used time code as well, where I never realized how easy it was. And pretty much just documenting like what's coming to the channel and big changes and stuff happening next year. So yeah, that's what I've got coming up.
Yeah, very
sweet.
Cool. Yeah, I watched that this morning. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. Yeah, got a lot of stuff coming.
Yeah, excited to see what's coming. All right, Norin, what's going on with your channel?
All right, so I actually did get sent my screener for the mean one today, so I'm going to be watching that today probably when we get off, or maybe when I lay the kiddo down. I might watch that tonight and then film my review for that.
Yeah.
And then I got my A Christmas Story versus Black Christmas video coming.
Oh yeah.
And then I also got a new Arrow video released today, so I got this. So I'm going to be talking about my Giallo Essentials. I got another one.
Nice.
So it's got 3 movies in there. I got to watch them all, and then I'm going to review it and talk about that pack and stuff. So, you know, awesome. Staying with the same old, man, and then celebrating Christmas and all that, you know.
Right.
Cool. All right. Well, Mike and Norin both have great channels. I really am a big fan of both of you guys. Love collaborating with you and talking about movies usually and whatnot, and what else, whatever, like wrestling. But yeah, it's my channel. I've got I'm going to be on Jacob Martin's channel. We're going to do a live discussion with Adam from What the Gym, talking about the movie It's a Wonderful Life this Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Anyway, so that should be fun. It's the first time Adam's ever seen the movie, so, and I'm a huge fan of it. Wonderful Life. One of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that movie on his channel, Jacob Martin. And then Saturday, I'm doing a live stream with Adam from What the Gym and also Briar CD Showcase, doing a top 10 Weird Al Yankovic songs. So we're going to do that on my channel Saturday at 2. So yeah, so I got those 2, and I got some other videos coming up. But anyways, those 2 big things. But again, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Norin, for being on the channel and having a great
Of course,
discussion.
dude. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime. I'd love you guys to have back on. So, but everybody, thank you for watching, and hope you enjoy your day. Goodbye.
Bye.